All right. So basically, don't make any changes to any of your plans from what you learned from class. Okay? Class is only to give you a general knowledge base and idea to maybe start to review and look at things. But obviously, you want to talk to a CPA, an attorney, an actual financial advisor, whatever the case may be, before you make any actual changes to any of your financial plan. Housekeeping. Obviously, if you have a cell phone, turn it to vibrate. Yes, it is. Um, Questions, please, by all means. This is for you guys to learn and understand. You can ask whatever you want to ask. There is no stupid question. If it's something I'm going to cover next week, then I'll just say that we're going to cover it more next week, but I still may answer a little bit of it. Um, if you're thinking it, so is everybody else. So just openly ask. As I said, this is for you guys, all right? Class session is tonight. You only have this section in your book for tonight. Then when you come next week on Tuesday night, you'll get the second portion of the book next Tuesday night, okay? The class this Thursday is the exact same class you're sitting in right now, okay? But if you wanted to, that you can't make next Tuesday, you can come next Thursday, would be fine. That would then be the second part of the class, okay? But bring your book with you if you would. Otherwise, you're gonna have a bunch of loose pages on there, okay? I've been doing the class now for a year, and I get the same feedback from a lot of people that this is a lot of information. It's very overwhelming. And so what I try to do is cut down a lot of the slides, a lot of the pages. So you have every page in your book of topics that we're going to talk about tonight. But I'm going to not do a whole lot of stuff on the board. I'm going to tell you a lot more just verbally going through things, okay? You can come back to the class as much as you want. However, I'm making a little bit of a change, and next month in December, I'm going with a group called Florida Adult Education, another 501c3 educational group for Florida, and we're structuring and doing this exact same class, but mucho shorter. So it will be one night, 3 hours for one night, and we're going to cut out two sections. We're going to cut out almost all of the legal portion, which we're going to cover like wills and trusts and probate and all that fun stuff tonight. We're going to cut that out because a lot of people don't really care about it. And we're going to cut out a lot of the medical portion of long-term care and Medicare, Medicaid type stuff. So, but you can always come to that class also. You could bring the same book because a lot of the stuff will still relate, or you're more than welcome to come to any of those classes, okay? And I'm not sure in January what will happen, if we'll stick with Florida Adult Education or if we'll continue with Prepare. I don't know. I don't like confusing people. I mean, the whole idea is for you guys to understand this stuff and be able to put it to use. And what I've learned over my years of doing this is that if something is confusing, then you're just going to shy away from it. You're not going to take any action, okay? So I want to try and get to kind of the meat of things I know people really, really have been liking out of the classes, and that's what I'm going to kind of cover in those nights. So that's this class session. And then at the end of the class sessions, you're more than welcome to do a lab session. So what I was explaining to these guys is in here, there's this prepare document. You go through and sign that. There should be one for each of you. And it basically states that you're not going to mention the name of any type of companies or any specific products, because that's what this is geared to only talk concept. So I'm also not going to mention any companies or products as we go through this. But then when we do that lab session, you're more than welcome to bring anything and everything you have in and ask whatever questions you want. I actually do the lab sessions myself if you want to meet with me. I do them Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays between like 9:30 and 3 at my office, which is right here on Okeechobee and Sandsbury, so just right up the street, okay? You can do a Zoom, you can do a phone call, you can come in. Doesn't make any difference to me. It's your time. You can do whatever you wish to do. If you pick any other time other than that, you won't have me. You'll just have one of our other advisors that are in the office, okay? Lab sessions where you can bring any of the information that you've learned from here, practical. So you can bring it in, like if you have annuities or you have investments or you have a 401k and you're just not sure about it, you can bring it in and we'll talk about your case specifically for you so that you can try and understand how to put the class together with what you have, okay? So the biggest thing to understand is not solicitation. This is all just pulling the curtains back for you guys to understand it totally, okay?
And why do you not do the legal with
That's next month. That's next month. I'm taking that out because I do other classes on that stuff. So if that's something that somebody really wants to know, they can come to that class just for that specifically. But tonight we will be covering it. Okay. So you're going to hear all of it. This is the full class, right? You got it.
For the lab session,
Yeah.
how you made the appointment?
So whoever's here next week at break will ask you if you want to do a lab session. They'll have the calendar, and you just try and fit it into those dates of that work for you. Okay. With the last session, I usually ask you to try and do it within like 2 weeks of doing the class because we do the classes consecutively, and there's usually a lot of people to try and get through. Plus, we still run our own business and see our own clients, so it can be kind of a lot. So we try to ask if you can do it within like 2 weeks of doing the class. Okay. So I want to go around the room just real quick and do this as a little introduction. My name is Patrick Sandner, and as I kind of told these guys, I was originally a commercial pilot. I've been doing this next month for 30 years. I not only am a financial planner, but I actually own the investment firm. So I have a little bit maybe more knowledge than some of the instructors that do things because it's not where I'm just an advisor working for somebody. I actually own the entire organization. Okay, so we have a very, very large organization. We have about 440 people in our back office. We have several offices across the country, and it's a decent little setup. But that's what I'm doing now as far as my occupation. I will be 57 this December. Retiring, I don't know if I will or not. I love teaching, and this is what I do. So even when I'm in the office, I'm only teaching. That's just kind of what I do all the time. So whether I'm teaching new members or new advisors or clients, what have you, I just love teaching. That's what I go through and do. I do travel a ton. So I've actually been gone more this year than we've been home. When we travel, we go for 4 to 6 weeks at a time. And so my wife stopped working completely 3 years ago, and now all she does is book trips, and more trips. So we go a lot. And what I'm hoping to get out of the class is for you guys to at least learn one thing, okay? At least one that I feel I've done my job. And I'm only going to talk about one topic that will not be in your book, and that's going to be a three-legged stool, okay? Because it's something I've lived my life planning to, and you guys just understand how that all kind of flows together. So we'll pick on you guys first up front. If you would just follow through, your name, what you guys are doing now or did do if you're retired, how close you are to 59 and a half, when you plan on retiring, what you hope to get out of the class.
Michael Labate, I'm an electrical engineer under, I would say 5 to 10 years.
To retirement?
Yeah.
Okay, how close are you to 59 and a half?
7.
Okay.
And we'll have to get out of the class. I mean, when I read the material that came through the mail, when I sat down and looked at it, I liked all of the topics, including the ones you're going to remove. So I just wanted to get a broad understanding of everything that I need to prepare for when I do stop working. My wife is in semi-retirement now, so
Love it.
that's wrong.
Cara Abate, retired mechanical engineer, stay-at-home mom.
2 engineers. Wow.
Homemaker, college sweethearts.
Oh, nice.
So 36 years later.
Yeah.
And I am 6 months from 59 and a half.
All right.
And so I need to start getting my act together. Getting, I guess, starting to get things in my retirement planning going. And yeah, and my concern, it was with all the legal side of it.
Okay.
With the wills and stuff like that, because I've lost all my parents in the past few years, and well, it's been now 8 years of a cluster because they didn't have any of their stuff in order.
Got
So
it.
it's been 8 years of probate and still.
See, what ends up happening, just to let you know, is that stuff is so specific to every case, it's easier to cover that in a lab session
Right.
than to try and cover it in class because most people are going, this has nothing to do with me.
Okay.
So that's why we're trying to shift that up. Because like I said, if it bores somebody, then they just kind of lose interest, and so that's why we're shifting that up.
Yeah, just like
But it is very
limited
important.
Trust and all that kind of
Yep.
stuff.
So you'll kind of see, we're going to cover it tonight, and you guys might get done and go, that was a lot of information, right?
I'm John Holford. I'm in sales and marketing. I will be 55 this December.
Okay.
When do I plan to retire? I mean, it's 67, most likely, a full retirement, but again, you're not sure if you want to keep working beyond that, So, what I hope to get from this class is just really kind of understand, life at retirement, just the different options that we have, and
Yes.
Yeah, so just to understand the different options that we learned from those, and just kind of get ahead of the game, if you will.
Perfect. That's what class is about. Excellent.
My name is Cindy Goldberg, and I'm data entry administrator. I'm 63, and I'm retiring in 1 years. And what I hope to get in this class is just, I want to learn as much as I can to have the best time.
Okay.
Rohan Kanai, I'm a teacher.
Who is married but left his wife?
No, I didn't leave my wife.
He left his wife stranded from the
I
class.
will never leave her. 24 years. I'm finding a substitute. Yeah, I'm 62, maybe retired, 67. I depend on my health. I don't like to stay home and do nothing.
Sure.
And I want to get the information that is in your brochure without any bias or motive of sales, because a lot of times people talk to you from a sales point of view, and you're not sure what they're hiding from you, or what they, if they're kind of deceiving you.
I'll go through some of that too, just to give you an idea of how it makes sense for the salesperson versus how it makes sense for you versus the company.
Yeah.
So I'll cover some of that tonight.
So I want to hear from a neutral ground.
Perfect. And what do you teach?
Engineering.
Oh my gosh. Look at all these engineer minds. Holy cow. How about you?
Hi, my name is Paige Parker. I am self-employed at 53. I'm not sure when I plan to retire from this class. I just want to get as much information as possible. I also am very interested in the wills and the trusts, as I have no heirs and I do have investments. So I'm very excited to be here and looking forward to get some knowledge.
Nice. What do you do for, if you don't mind saying?
Most of my investments are in real estate.
No, I meant as far as your business.
As far as my business, I do multiple things. I just recently retired 23 years from running a children's surfing camp.
Oh,
So I've done that, and then along the way I've done real estate investing with my mother, who was supposed to be here tonight, but she couldn't come. So her and I have been business partners every year in a lot of real estate.
nice. Awesome. Awesome. Good deal.
You know, abandon your mother.
Yeah. Exactly. So here's the 5 areas of basic retirement. You've got income, taxation, healthcare, estate planning, and investments, right? The issue that I see a lot is that people will have a professional who might do their investments for them outside of work, and maybe a professional helps with their investments at work. Then they may have somebody who does their taxes for them. Maybe they use TurboTax or a professional service. They may have somebody who's doing their insurance for them. Maybe they have somebody who's doing all their legal work for them, an attorney or a paralegal, what have you. And the challenge is none of those people talk to each other. So it really becomes a challenge that you're kind of in the middle trying to put all the pieces together. So originally back in the day, kind of an interesting story. So I was a commercial pilot, but I started doing my own investments because I didn't trust anybody. And so I started investing my own money, and I did a pretty decent job of it. And all of a sudden these other pilots are like, hey, could you invest my money? So I'm like, sure. So I started investing their money. I had no idea there was any laws or rules or regulations against it. I just was doing it. It was no big deal. We're all friends and whatever. I came back from a flight one day, and there was these 2 guys in suits standing at my locker, and I honestly thought they were FAA. And I happened to be the captain of the flight, which flight area was. We flew all over the world. So no proving runs. It was just all freelance going. So I'm like, oh my gosh, did I fly through restricted airspace? I'm trying to like run through my head real fast, like where we had just been and what I did, because I'm thinking, now sure enough, I get to them, they flash badges. But they were FBI, not FAA. So I'm like, oh geez, what do I really do now? They're like, do you have an investment company? No, I'm a pilot. They said, well, do you have $107 million invested? I'm like, well, I don't. I guess I have some friends. I guess we have an investment. I mean, I didn't even really think of it that way. I had $107 million in the market. Well, you can't have $400 million and not be registered with the SEC and be fully licensed. So I'm like, am I going to jail? And they're like, no, you just need to get licensed. I'm like, well, what does that take? So they told me. I went and I got my license. I went to Smith Barney because you have to have somebody backing you once you get your license. So I went to Smith Barney for this interview. And they're like, well, what do you do? I said, I'm a commercial pilot. They said, well, what do you have to offer to Smith Barney? I said, well, now I go from $107 some 113 million at that time. I said, well, I have 113 million dollars. They said, you're hired. So I got a job with Smith Barney. So as I was working for Smith Barney and still flying and registered now with the SEC as an investment advisor, everything was going along great, what have you. And I happened to be doing a particular flight with a gentleman named Sandy Weil, who created a program to bring all this like multi-market selling together. So he was part of Citigroup, Citibank, Citigroup. So they created Citi Financial, brought Travelers in, brought in Smith Barney, Shearson, Lehman. They put everything under the same umbrella so that they could cross-sell. So the idea, what I understood, was that you would come into the office and you would meet with like one person that was going to be able to do everything for you. And so I bought into the concept. I started helping him, started putting a lot of it together. Actually left aviation and went full force that route, and then found out that it didn't work that way. That I was in the investment division, and as I would help a client with investments, if they needed the mortgage, I had to send them to the mortgage division. And then I had no idea if they got the mortgage or they didn't. And or I had to send them to the insurance division. And so none of us talked to each other at all. Sandy was making money because everybody was buying everything under his umbrella, but nobody still, so it still was discombobulated like this. So that's why my wife and I decided to start our own company. I think it was in 2003 that we went through and started our company so that we could go through and actually do everything under one umbrella. So the group that started this financial, for this 501c3, they kind of do things the exact same way that we do. And I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. That circle, when you come into our office, you'll see something very, very similar that I've been using for the 30 years. The words are just a little bit different. They're a little bit different pattern to fit with what I do. But the whole goal is to get you guys to be able to understand how to get these people to all work together. That's the whole idea, right? Because I mean, that's the only way that you're going to be able to get it done. Now, there are, in your book, 10 different challenges for retirement that you need to go through and put together. But I'm going to tell you right now, the biggest thing to going into retirement, and I'm going to call it your lifestyle. What is your lifestyle today? Okay? Being a very positive thought, what are you spending today? What is your lifestyle? And what's your lifestyle going to be when you stop working? Because when you stop working, now you don't have any money coming in from work. Right? What's your lifestyle going to be? So we're going to go through and send this to you. It's going to be a fillable so that you can start to put together your lifestyle now. And a lot of people go, well, I know how much my mortgage is, and I know how much, my insurance is. I know all this stuff. I have a really good idea. I want you to get as detailed on this as you possibly can, because this is going to be the biggest answer for you for the rest of your life. Businesses use this, called a P&L, profit and loss statement, right? They have to know how much is going out versus how much is coming in. Why would we not want to know that as a couple or as a household? So this gets kind of nitty gritty, and the more you can work on it, not just a one-time thing, it's like evolving as it goes on through, so engineers will love it. But, example, you guys pay for your car tags. You do it once a year or twice a year? I mean, once a year or every 2 years? Every 2 years. So you should take that amount and divide it by 24, and it should be on there, right? How many put tires on the car? Once a year, twice a year, or I mean every 2 years, so every 3 years, whatever the case may be. Take the average cost of tires, I would go high, divide it by 36 months if you do it every 3 years. Put it on there, okay? I really want you to break it down. So what will happen is if you do this correctly and you have this set up, you will never get into the point of a comment like, man, every time I seem to get ahead, I get knocked back down again, okay? Now, obviously, if you have a lot of money, it doesn't make any damn difference because you just take the money for your savings, you pay for whatever it is. But if you're trying to live now on a budget, on a different lifestyle in retirement, it does make a difference. And here's what's really crazy. Income, unless you're maybe heard, doesn't just sneak up on you, but expenses do, right? I mean, it's crazy how, and I say that because you have real estate, so your real estate can possibly change and what have you. So you got your own business and things are happening that way. But most people don't have income that's just going to pop up out of the blue. You're going to have that, but expenses just constantly pop up. So one thing that's not in your book that I will mention quite a bit is what I call the three-legged stool. I don't have a picture of it, just think of a three-legged stool. Right? So you have 3 legs, still not a really great stool to use, I don't think, but 3 legs, it's stable, and you can stand up and do whatever you do. So here are the 3 legs. The 3 legs are going to consist of Social Security. And we're going to talk about Social Security maybe some night in the Social Security so you can feel more comfortable about Social Security. But understand for now, Social Security is a bottomless pit that grows at 8%. Never gonna run out of money for you guys. Okay, so when you stop working and you have no more income, you're gonna have Social Security if you paid into it. Number two, you're gonna have your investments. And the investments can consist of everything. It could be real estate, it could be horses, it could be stocks, it could be bonds, it could be whatever is gonna be that second leg. And most people only have investments in Social Security, and that becomes very wobbly. The third leg is a pension. Do any of you guys have opportunity for pension? You have pension? You guys have pension? You have pension? All right. So that pension is the third leg, and the pension is a bottomless pit. So Social Security and pension, bottomless. Those are income that are going to be coming to you forever.
Is pension different from 401k?
Yes, 100%. The 401k is just an investment. Yeah, that could run out. Pension is something that's actually going to give you guaranteed income for life. We'll talk about pensions next week, okay? But you can actually build your own pension. You don't have to have it through your employer, which a lot of people don't realize. But if you could build those two solid legs, that pension and Social Security, to cover your essential needs, then the investments are not that big a deal. Now the investments could just become play, right? Whatever you're going to do to your kids, or whatever you're going to travel on, or whatever. It just takes a lot of relief off of you having it set up that way. So the three legs, Social Security, pension, and investments, is solid. Most people have just Social Security and investments, which is wobbly. A lot of people have just Social Security. And then that is a circus act, right? So you guys are applying that in that situation because you come to this class. Most people who come to this class have some type of other investments. That's what they're trying to understand. My wife and I created a foundation, this is about 23 years now, called Veterans Benefits of America. And it helps our wartime veterans to have either an aid in the home, or assisted living, or skilled nursing. And so over the 23 years, we've raised about $270 million for our wartime veterans to go through and do that. But it amazes me that the bulk of those veterans only live off their Social Security. They don't have anything else. That's a lot of people in this country that live off of just Social Security. So that's why I explained it that way. So that's not in the book, but that's what we're looking at going through this. So this is huge, having that lifestyle. Because if you think about it, you're semi-retired now, right? So when you were working, what day of the week did you guys spend the most money? Would you say? Friday or Saturday when you were working, right? When you retire, it's every day is Friday or Saturday. So you probably will spend more money in retirement. So that's why it's so important. Now, a lot of people call this a budget. They may even say an audit budget. I hate the word budget. It's negative. It's lifestyle, right? What's the lifestyle you want now? What's the lifestyle you want then? Because that kind of gets dreaming going also. So as you're doing this, go on the higher end of side, right? Have the expenses a little bit greater than what they may be so that you can try to achieve that goal, right? And then what you can do is as you fill it out, label it for each month. So it's a fillable. So that way next month when you go into it, you'll already have everything there. You can just adjust it and label it November, right? And then you can go back to December, just adjust it and label it December. And you may think of things, oh crap, I didn't put this on there, I didn't put that on there. Because gifts, are a big deal. Anniversaries, whatever. So those types of things, you keep on putting that type of stuff on there. That's why I said it's always going. But then that's nice is that next year you can go back to it and go, what did we spend last January? What did we spend last July? And you kind of see a pattern of where you guys are within your stuff, okay? This is a huge answer versus this, but this is in your book. But this is a huge answer as to where you're gonna find out, all right? Yeah.
You're gonna get that.
We're gonna email it to you. We're gonna email it to you. Yep. So it'll come to you tomorrow. It's gonna come from Prepare, and next week I'll ask you if you got it. If for some reason you didn't, then they can send it to you, or you can call the Prepare number. What's tomorrow? Wednesday. You can call the Prepare number Thursday if you didn't get it. If you want it. Michaela back there is the one who's gonna send it to you. So just call it Prepare. Do you answer the Prepare phone? Yeah. So she'll answer the phone, and then you'll get it. All right. So we're gonna go break down into taxation. I'm gonna tell you, tonight's class is meant to disturb you, right? It really is. And I'm gonna hopefully give you some answers of how you can avoid some of this disturbance. And then next week's gonna be how you can actually start to put all of it together, which is kind of cool. So what we're gonna discuss is the U.S. debt and how it could impact your retirement. We're gonna talk about the historical perspective of tax rates. We're going to talk about how savings and investments are taxed, taxation on Social Security. You have a case study in your book, actually probably several case studies. I'll probably just go through and talk about personal stories as we go through. All right. Judge Leonard Hand came out and made this comment. Anyone may so arrange their affairs that their taxes shall be as low as possible. They are not bound to choose that pattern which best pays the treasury. But what ends up happening? So in 1913, the very first tax return was created. Didn't even fill a full page of paper. It's only like 3/4 of a page. And in 1914, the very next year, legislation started. Right? So the idea is they will charge you as much as they possibly can. And then what you need to do is use legislation to be able to understand what deductions you qualify for. Okay? That's why you probably will use like TurboTax or TaxSlayer or some type of software or a CPA or an accountant to go through and do your taxes for you, because you are understanding that they understand what deductions you should get. Now, a lot of people go, man, I hate that the poor get taxed and the rich don't get taxed. Well, I will tell you, the reason why the rich don't get taxed is because we understand legislation. We hire people to go through and do legislation for us, right?
Or we hire people to do our taxes for us, no matter what you do.
This is very true. However, and I'm going to interrupt just for 1 second. Just out of curiosity, what do you do for a living?
So I run a wealth management shop.
Wealth management shop. What does that mean?
We have RIAs and IARs that work for us.
Okay.
And that's what we do.
So you're licensed 65, 66, or you're
Yes, 65, 66.
perfect. Okay. So what ends up happening is you go through a lot of times we'll hire somebody who knows how to do taxes, but they're basically just a historian. All they're going to do is record what you did last year and then go through and put that in, right? A tax attorney would go through and actually try to tax mitigate through the year for you. And that's a big difference. So there's a lot of different things that you can do up till December 31st. But once you hit December 31st, you do not have the opportunity to go back and make any of those changes. About the only thing that you can do after December 31st up till April 15th of next year is you do have the opportunity to put money into an IRA, individual retirement account, okay? And we're going to talk a lot about that tonight. But as you turn around and put money into an IRA, that allows you to give a tax deduction because you don't have to pay taxes on the amount that you put into the IRA, okay? So that's one of the only ways you could save yourself some taxes in the previous year rolling into the next year. Everything else would have to be mitigated during that year. So the best way to do that is to hire a tax attorney. So wealthy people usually employ a lot of tax attorneys, and they've taken this statement to heart to go through and make sure that they can mitigate as much as possible and not have to worry about doing those taxes. So what could make taxes go up in retirement? This. And before I get into this, I want to bring these numbers into realistic so that you guys can really, really get it. So this also is not in the book. I don't care for their example that they have, so I'm going to give you mine so that it's a lot shorter. So you can write mine down if you want, because it's really great to share with your students, your grandkids, whoever. But let's talk about million, billion, and trillion. And other than there are a lot of zeros, right? Let's relate to them in time, because that's something we can relate to easy. So if we had 1 million seconds and we added them all together, right? 1 million seconds would total 12 days. If we had 1 billion seconds and we add them all together, it would be 32 years. So a million and a billion aren't even in the same galaxy with each other, because you're talking 12 days versus 32 years. You guys watch Shark Tank? You ever watch Shark Tank?
Yeah.
Mark Cuban, multi-billionaire. Everybody else on that panel, millionaires. They don't think the same. You ever watch Cuban? He sits back, he listens, he makes one fire, that's it. Either you take it or I'm out. Because his mind works so different than the millionaires. They're not in the same galaxy with each other, okay? It's always funny when people say to me, why is this friend you talk to them? They're like a millionaire or billionaire. Well, which are they? Because they're totally different animals to deal with, right? All right, 1 trillion. 1 trillion seconds added together. Just under 32,000 years. 31,796 years, 11 months, 9 days. Holy crap. We're sitting right now this was done in January 19th of this year. We're over $33 trillion in debt in this country. 33 trillion, 1 trillion seconds, 32,000 years. Gives you a little bit of an idea of how much debt we have. That number hits 57 trillion. 100% of all revenue that's brought in during a month will only cover the interest of that 57 trillion. There will be no more programs. That's kind of scary. It was even scarier prior to the last president, because the last president went through and made some big changes. Prior to that, we were going through and actually owed a lot of that debt to China. They were starting to teach Malaysian in the school systems. There was a lot of changes that were happening. I, for one, was petrified. I don't know if you were. I was petrified that we were going to be taken over and our US dollar would be gone and we'd be running by the yen. But they went through and made some changes and borrowed money from 18 countries that do not have very strong military support. We are their military. They borrowed the money from them and paid China off. So I have no idea what will happen with our deficit if we hit that point. Maybe they'll just go, sorry, we'll pay you what we can. Because what are they going to do? They can't really come after us. We're defending them. That's only me saying that. That is not this class. That is just my own thing of, hey, is that maybe what's going to happen? But what they are going through and doing is they're trying to change a lot of different rules and regulations. And so within those rules and regulations, we re-vote in legislation every 2 years. Every 2. And those legislation go through and are trying to change tax laws in order to try and handle the deficit and handle things that are happening within the country. One of those legislators is a very good friend of mine. She's on Capitol Hill now, and I'm always picking her brain. And her dad is an actuary. He writes these different products for the country. He actually was one of the first individuals who ever wrote the first pension, which is kind of interesting. He's written 3 of them for the United States. Very smart guy. As he explains, you engineers, right? Actuaries are like probably just a little bit above you. The way he explains himself is he's like, I'm a computer with a heart. Because he is. He's just a walking computer, right? So getting to spend time with the 2 of them is pretty cool. But one of the things I was asking her is, when we re-vote somebody into legislation, then are we getting like a new perspective on things, that they're coming up with their new ideas, and like all the old stuff is just kind of out the door? And she kind of chuckled, and she actually sent me a picture of the volumes of all the different ideas and plans that have happened before in legislation for all the legislators prior to, which has now all been computerized. So when that new legislator sits down and they get an idea, they just type it in, and it pulls up every single thing that's ever been happened, ever thought of in the past. That it just comes right to light, that everything is just right there. That's kind of scary. You know, the legislation can have that much ability, that much power over things. So here's the big thing. If we want to get rid of this $31 trillion, every single person that is registered of being in the United States, so infant to grandparent to what have you, that they would come out of their pocket with $94,219, we could pay off that deficit. We get to start over zero. Probably not going to happen because I don't know a lot of babies that would have $94,000, right? So if we just went to the taxpayers, who are actual registered taxpayers like all of us, well, we would just come up with $246,867 each, and we would get rid of that deficit. Probably never going to happen, right? But they got to figure out how to go through and do that. There's been one president in the history of the United States that actually lowered that deficit number during his term, and the next year broke even. Anybody know who it was? Only one. Nobody? Wow. Clinton. Clinton lowered it. Are you ready for this? Huge number. $580 billion. He lowered it 1 year. But now we know that a billion is just not really a drop in the bucket, right? But he did. He lowered it $580 billion in 1 year, and the very next year broke even. Only president's ever done it. The new group we have in right now has put $10 trillion onto that in the last year. The last year, right? We know that all this is happening and all this stuff is going crazy, and we got into the whole situation of the debt ceiling. And they had to figure out how to go through and what they were going to raise to go through to 2025. And so our president came through and said, I need $8.8 trillion. And Republican House said that's absolutely absurd. We were thinking the max like 2.2, maybe we pushed to 2.6 trillion. What did they settle at? 6 trillion. 6 trillion. Interesting, right? So this is a challenge. And what they're talking about, legislation is talking about, is not raising taxes for the working person. They're going to go after the retirement funds. Okay? That's what we're going to spend our time today, is talking about the retirement funds. So this has been the average tax rate over the years from the 1914, 1913, all the way through to 2020. So for the most people, they've been down at a tax rate of about 10.52, and there's been, for the wealthy, 57.81. They're the highest tax rates were in the history of the United States. Happened just after World War II in 41 and 42. 97% and 98%. Now you gotta make over $200,000, and above that was taxed at 97%. So could you imagine making $1, taking home 3 cents? I only point it out because it has happened in the past. It could happen again in the future, right? As I said, this section of the class was set to scare you guys and get you really thinking about where things are going. So I want to break down and talk a little bit about the tax table and how it works. This might be very, very, common for you guys, and for some of you, maybe it's totally different. But in 2018, Trump passed a thing for standard deductions. So prior to 2018, you were saving every receipt you could get your hand on, right? So that you could go through in your accountant or whoever was doing your tax always said, where are your receipts? Let's put them in. In 2018 and to today, you haven't been asked for receipts anymore. The reason being is because most people are taking the standard deductions. So the standard deductions, and I'm going to talk a lot about married couples. So are you married, single? Single. Okay. And you're married or single? Okay. So you're the only single guy. So just look at the single tables. All right. But for the married couple, the standard deduction for this year is $27,700. So that means for the first $27,700 you earn, no tax, 0 taxes. That's cool, okay? And then if you happen to be, which I don't think any of you are, over 65, you get an additional, for a married couple, $1,500 off, right? So you're almost $30,000. For the single, it's $1,850, but I don't think you're over 65, right? That's a big deal. And we're going to have that still through this year, 24 and 25. So right now in 26, that will sunset, be gone, and you will be saving receipts again. Okay, to try and come up with your standard deductions. So most everybody's taking the standard deductions because you probably don't have enough receipts to be greater than that amount, right? Tax table. I love it when people go, oh, I'm in a 22% tax bracket. Well, even though you maybe hit the 22% tax bracket, are you really paying 22% on all of your income? No, you can't. Because the first $27,000 for a married couple isn't taxed at all. That's 0. So then after 27,700, the very next 0 to 22,000 is taxed at 10%. Follow? So if you did 22,000 to 10% and the 27,700, that means you're at like 49,700 and you're still at a 10% tax bracket, but actually would only be paying about, if you average that out, 4.5% tax. Make sense? Okay. So then once you go past 22, from 22,100 to 89,450, you're at 12. Just that money is at 12%. And then maybe you hit here that you hit $89,451, and you go, I'm in the 22% tax bracket by $1. $1. But yet a lot of people like to cry. Okay. So these are the tax brackets. You kind of all understand now how they work, right? And so what happens is when you get your tax return, it'll say your modified adjusted gross income. And that's the actual percentage of tax that you paid on your income. So it's very important to understand what that percentage is. And the whole goal is to try and get that percentage down as much as you possibly can, right? If there is a way of getting the taxes down, say 6% or 8%, would that not be the same as earning 6% or 8% in your investments? It's the same, right? So the whole goal is try and get those taxes down. And I might pick on you from time to time because his whole goal back there is trying to get you as much money as you possibly can in your investments, right? Our goal is trying to get you to save as much as you possibly can in your taxes. I have an idea. So, all right, we come into here. This is taxes on long-term capital gains. Okay, so there's long-term capital gains and short-term capital gains. So when you have an investment and it's not in your IRA or not in a Roth, so it's not qualified, it's just an investment. It's in a CD, it's in a money market account, it's in a stock, a bond, it's set up, it's in real estate, whatever. And you go through and you sell that in less than 12 months, then that entire capital appreciation is taxed at ordinary income. Okay? She buys a house, $100,000, flips it for $120,000, does it within less than 12 months. $20,000 is capital appreciation. She doesn't pay tax on her original 100 she put in. She only has to pay tax on the 20,000, right? So what happens is we come back here, and she can say, okay, well, that's pretty cool. That 20,000 I just flipped, I didn't pay any tax on it because I hit my 27.7, right? But it still has to be 20,000 on top of whatever her and her husband's income is to go through the brackets. Make sense? But if she holds that particular house, and houses are 2 years, so maybe a bad example, because all other investments are 12 months and 1 day. Houses are 2 years. I have to hold the house for 2 years before you flip it to go into long-term capital appreciation, okay? But all other investments are only 12 months and 1 day to go into long-term capital appreciation. So when you have that capital appreciation, so we bought an investment for 100,000, we sold it for 120, exactly 1 year and 1 day later, we still have to count that 20,000 as income for our brackets, okay? But what we don't have to do is possibly pay taxes on it depending upon where our bracket is. So look at this, joint adjusted gross income, 89,250, right? 89,250 puts you at still within the 12%, right? So if you're in that situation, you wouldn't pay any tax on that at all. Have to count it to your tax bracket, but you don't have to pay any capital appreciation on it. If you happen to go over on income to these levels, now you pay 15% capital appreciation. And that's where a lot of people are. Once you go over this income level, it's 20% capital appreciation and 3.8% on all of your income. That's not a nice number. Not a nice number. So when you're dealing with somebody like him that's going through and doing investments, you want to make sure that when they're doing moves and strategies that they're not selling the holdings premature and or going to cost you capital appreciation. Okay? That's only in an unqualified account. What is going to happen in 2026 is that all of these tax brackets are going to sunset. So they were lowered 30%, they're going to raise 30%. So a lot of times they say tax rate, 30%, but they were lowered 30%. We're in the lowest tax brackets we've been in 30 years. So they will sunset in 25. So when we look here, this will go away. All standard deductions will go away, be back to receipts. So then when we hit here, look at, you're going to be able to earn less and pay a higher percentage. Well, that kind of reeks. That's what's going to happen. Okay? So just be aware of it because it's coming. Taxes in retirement. So, 401ks, IRAs, 403bs, 457, TSPs, they're all identifiers to the IRS for a qualified plan. They're not the investments, they're just an identifier. So if you have a 401k, the IRS knows that you work for a private employer, you save money in there, that's all there is to it, and maybe taxable, may not, depending upon how you save it inside there. If you have a 403b, then you're probably a school teacher. If you have a 457, you probably have some type of a dangerous position or FBI agent, what have you. Okay? So that's all they are. If you have a TSP, then you're a government employee. Most people will put their money into their 401k. Whatever identifier you want to call those, they're all individual retirement accounts, IRAs. Because they're not on there at all with an account being two of yours. Make sense? It's an individual retirement account. This bucket represents that individual retirement account. This bucket represents those accounts that are not qualified. They're not IRA, they're not Roth IRA. They're just individual investments that you've done outside of the IRS, that you've already paid taxes on the money that you put into that investment, and you will only owe the taxes on the earnings. Make sense? That's this bucket. Now, the IRS offers two opportunities. They offer a Roth and they offer the IRA. The Roth is a completely tax-free vehicle, so you settle the taxes today and then never pay taxes ever again. This bucket represents the amount of money that people have in the Roth. Okay? There's a little bit of a chuckle there, but maybe you guys have all your money in Roth, which I love you all. So let's talk about the Roth and the IRA and what the opportunities are between these, because the IRS gives you two different opportunities. They're very, very different. Okay? In the IRA, they basically state that whatever amount of money you put in there, you don't pay taxes on this year. So they limit how much you can put in. But let's say that you make $100,000 and you put $10,000 in here, you only pay taxes on the 90. You've saved the taxes on that 10,000. But then if that 10,000 happens to grow to 100,000, you or your beneficiaries will pay taxes on all of it in the future when you take it out into your possession. Okay? So, biblically speaking, here you're saving the money on the seeds but paying taxes on the entire crop. The Roth opportunity is if you make $100,000 and you put $10,000 into there, you will pay taxes this year on the $100,000 that's earned. But the $10,000 that went in here, if it grows to $100,000, you will never pay any taxes on any of that money whatsoever, nor will your beneficiaries. So you pay taxes on the seed, and you receive the crop completely tax-free. So in essence, in just thinking, which would you rather have? The Roth. Why does your accountant or your software or your employer say no, you should have the IRA? Because all of them do. You will never find any of them tell you, go Roth, go Roth, go Roth. It's all IRA. Because they want you to have the tax benefits this year. Kick the can down the road, they probably won't know you down the road, so they really don't care. But they want you to go ahead and have the tax benefits this year so that you're paying the least amount of tax, you like them, and maybe you hire them again next year to do your taxes. Make sense? Okay? But here's the old school concept, and I'm going to destroy this right now. Old school concept. But if I take and put my money into the IRA, and I get the tax deductions this year, and it grows and I know I owe taxes on it later, I'm not going to be working. I'm going to be in a lower tax bracket. I may not be in any tax bracket. So then I could take the money out of that and not pay tax. Makes sense, right? Makes complete sense, really. Until we talk about lifestyle. Anybody in here not pulled your Social Security benefits? Do you know what your Social Security benefits are, or is there anybody who has not pulled it? Perfect, so you know what it is. You know what it is? You know Social Security? You know what Social Security benefits are? Cool. So we go into retirement. Can you live the same lifestyle you're living today on your Social Security? Okay, so if you cannot live the same lifestyle you're living today, are you going to reduce your lifestyle down to Social Security? Because if you do, if you reduce your lifestyle down to the Social Security, then I will somewhat agree that you should put the money in this bucket. But let's say you don't do that, you decide to live the same lifestyle, then where are you going to get the difference? So example, let's say that your Social Security is $2,500 a month, your expenses are $5,000, where are you getting the other $2,500? Well, you're going to go to your retirement bucket, your 401k, your IRA, what have you. And you're going to take the money out of this, right? So 2,500 times 12 is what? 25 times 10 is 25,000. 5 more is $30,000. So we're going to take $30,000 out of here. And let's say we're at a 12% tax bracket. What's the tax? 3,600. Where do we get the 3,600 from? Shit, maybe I can't take $3,600 out. So what's 12% of 3,600? 178. Ah, shit, you gotta go back and take $178 out. So what's that? 12% of 178? $63. Crap, you gotta take 60. It's a wicked spiral. It sucks. Right? But that's reality, and that's what legislation knows, and that's why they're going after those retirement accounts. That's why they're going after them. How are they going after them? Well, it used to be that you did not have to take money out of that until you hit 70 and a half, right? So let's say you didn't need it. You have other investments over here. You have money in your savings, you have money in your checking, you have money in real estate coming in. You got other sources that are coming through, right? So you don't need to touch that bad boy. You may never need to touch it. At 70 and a half, the IRS says you have to start taking money out of here. It's called the required minimum distribution, RMDs. Now, interesting, when I started this business 30 years ago, I thought God was the only one who knew when you were going to die. I really did. I was naive. Because the IRS actually has a table that shows you. Because you have to have this depleted by your age of death. And they got a whole chart that shows you how you have to deplete it beyond by the time you die. Isn't that interesting, right? So you have to start taking money out of this at 70 and a half, whether you need it or you don't. And what happens when you take money out of this at 70 and a half? It counts as income. And as soon as it counts as income, it's going to push you up those income brackets. It's going to probably push you up Social Security tax. It's going to possibly push you up Medicare costs. Crap. It's really a wicked spiral, right? So what did they do? They went through and said, hey, you guys, you know, everybody's kind of complaining that we're living longer, so how about you don't take that out at 70 and a half? How about we change it to 72? And I'm going, no, don't vote yes on that. Everybody's like, yeah, 72 would be much better because I really don't need the money. Let's start my RMDs at 72. That'd be much better. No, that's 18 more months for this thing to grow. That's 18 more months of money they're going to get taxed on. No, don't vote for it. Everybody did it. They voted for it. You know what else they did? Legislation snuck on that little ballot. Another little cute thing. It used to be that if you had this money in this IRA and you passed away, you could pass it to your beneficiaries and they could keep it for their retirement. They would not have to take any money out of that until 70 and a half. Obviously, if they took anything out, they're going to pay taxes on it as ordinary income the year they take it out. But they didn't have to touch it till 70 and a half. Shoot, they didn't even have to touch it at all. Your kids could take that IRA and pass it to your grandkids, called a generational skip. Could happen once. Your grandkids could not pass it to theirs. They can only do it one time, generational skip. Okay? So on that cute little ballot, they said, oh, everybody's going to vote to 72. Let's just put on here no more generational skip. And let's put in this little clause that this IRA now has to be liquidated within 10 years, which your beneficiary gets it. So now you pass away and your kids receive your 401k, they have to liquidate that thing within 10 years. Pay all the taxes on it. They have a choice. They give them a choice. Pay all the taxes today. Pay the taxes over 10 years. Pay all the taxes in the 10th year. Think about your children, their occupations, their expenses, and your 401k and them inheriting it. Do they have the ability to pay the taxes on that, or is it going to really mess up their financing? Right? That sucks again. But they did it. And then what they did? Next year they said, hey, let's change it to 73. You guys like 72 so much, we'll change it to 73. So now, most of you don't have to take your RV until 73. Great, let's give them 3 more years, 2.5 more years for it to grow. And for Michaela, she'll take it at 75 years of age. So they keep moving it out, right? Because it allows it just to keep growing. They're not stupid. Let me tell you, they give you this opportunity because they know what they're going to get in revenue down the years. Not stupid. They're amazing. So now we just have to figure out how to get around that. The Roth, very, very different animal. Okay? The Roth, whatever money you put in there, you settle the taxes already. That bucket is completely tax-free for you and your beneficiaries forever. So it's tax-free. That means that if you take money out of it, it doesn't count as income. $2,500 of Social Security benefits. We need an extra $2,500 a month. We need that 30 grand. Go to the Roth, we take out the 30 grand. No tax, no different brackets, no higher Medicare, no higher Social Security tax, nothing. Nothing. On that same ballot, they decided to take away from the generational skip and the Roth to retirement for our beneficiaries. So unfortunately now, if you pass away and you leave this Roth to your kids, they have to liquidate within 10 years. They can either do it all up front, they can do it in 10 years, or they can do it all in the 10th year. So, let's just logically think about this. Sucks to die, but you might have your parents and you might inherit something from them, or you might have somebody at work, or a friend, or whoever, a neighbor, and there's a debt that occurs. And I want you to have this knowledge. If somebody inherits an IRA, I would liquidate that thing the day they get it. Because you're gonna pay the least amount of tax to liquidate it that day. Why would you want to grow another penny and pay another penny of tax on it? Right? I'd liquidate it immediately. The Roth, I would not. I would do everything I could not to liquidate that thing until the 10th year. Because everything that this grows is tax-free. And once you take it out of here, it's not tax-free money anymore, because you're gonna take it out of here and maybe put it into here, and all interest is taxable. All interest in here counts towards your income and pushes you up your brackets. Right? 59.5 is a super, super important number for a couple of reasons. So you have it, you're close, how old are you? How old are you?
59.4.
Okay, so you're really close. So it's good for you, you're off. Good for you. How old are you? 52. She's the worst back there. She's only 26, 7. All right, so I'm off to accept 57. 59.5. Couple rules happen at 59.5. That's why we ask how close are you to 59.5. First rule that happens is you can take money out of this vehicle without a 10% penalty. If you remove money out of this vehicle prior to 59.5, you may be charged a 10% penalty. Okay? That's the first rule. Second rule is, for most employers, they will allow you to move the money from your retirement plan at work out of your retirement plan and into your own IRA outside of work. Oh, why would you want to do that? Well, next week we'll talk a lot about it, because I am not fond of mutual funds. Do you like mutual funds? Not fond of mutual funds, okay? We'll explain why we're not fond of mutual funds. Your retirement plans are all mutual funds. So you may want to get out of the mutual funds, and the IRS, believe it or not, is like, hey, mutual funds probably aren't that good. So at 59.5, you can go ahead and move your retirement plan out, even though you have it in service, and put it into your own investments outside of your work plan. Because their thought was is that you would take it out of the mutual funds and put it into something else. And yet what's funny is most people will take it out of the mutual funds and go buy mutual funds because it's all they know. But you don't want to buy mutual funds outside of work. But you can, at 59.5, move that out without any service. The only other way that you can move money out of your 401k is if you leave. If you end service, then you can move it out, right? Or sometimes if they internally are changing the investment company and you don't know who they are, you don't feel comfortable with them, there's a very short window that you may be able to move your money out and not deal with the new company. Okay? Those are the only real choices. But you can move the money out. So let me back up for 1 second. Because you can make a contribution, right, to your 401k. You could also have an IRA outside of work, besides having a plan at work, and you can make a contribution to your IRA. The maximum contributions that all of you guys can do being over 50 is $6,500 a year and $1,000 catch-up, so $7,500 in 2023 is as much as you can put into your IRA outside of work, or you can put it into a Roth. That's a contribution. Okay? Now we're talking about converting or doing a conversion from your work plan to an IRA outside of it. It has to convert or transfer like kind, IRA to IRA. Okay? Once it hits the IRA, now you have the opportunity that you could convert it to a Roth. That's kind of interesting. So if you haven't done it, you haven't done anything in the Roth, you do have the opportunity that you can move this money from your qualified plan to a Roth, but you cannot take it from the 401k IRA directly to the Roth. It has to go from an IRA to an IRA outside of work, and then it can convert to the Roth at that point. Now the question is, or the comment is, whatever amount of money you convert from here to here is tax taxable income for the year that you do it. So, you move your IRA, your 401k out here is $300,000 in there. You decide that you're going to think about converting 100,000 of that to the Roth. You have to add $100,000 to your income. You have to go through all the income brackets and see where you're at, right? To see if that makes sense, if you can stomach it, to go through and pay that tax. Also, Medicare premiums, which we're going to cover Medicare in a little bit, Medicare premiums are going to go through and look at the last 2 years of tax returns to come up with the charge of your Part B. So if you are 63 and you're going to look at doing this conversion, you could actually get higher Medicare premiums. So you got to take that into consideration, okay? So one of the things at the lab session, if you're wanting to talk about doing an IRA conversion and see the numbers, is we have software that you can use that will calculate every bit of that for you, okay? And that's one of the biggest challenges, because a lot of times people say, well, I went to my accountant and I asked them how much I should convert, and they said, well, that's an investment question. And then they went to their investment advisor, and the investment advisor said, well, that's a tax advisor question. And they can't get an answer. Well, we have the software, we can answer it for you. You guys can play with our software and you'll have your answer, okay? So, there are pros and cons to doing it. We'll talk next week about some of the cons. But the more you could get into that Roth, the better off you would be in a tax situation, right? In a retirement situation. Because if we're retired and our Social Security is not covering our lifestyle, and we need to take money, I would much rather take it from a tax-free bucket than a taxable bucket, right? Licensed life insurance? So, life insurance. There is a particular product. Next week we'll talk about the different types of life insurance, but this particular product is an IRR 7702 to the IRS. It has to be specifically created that route. Some people also call it a mega Roth. And what you can do is you can take, when you're doing your conversion from your IRA to your Roth, is you could, if you're insurable, decide instead of putting it into the Roth to put it into the 7702. Now here's the difference between a mega Roth versus a regular Roth, and I'll probably talk about this again next week. But this Roth only has the opportunity to grow interest. One product, one thing. That's all it has the opportunity to do, right? But it's tax-free, it's a beautiful thing. But it only has the opportunity to grow. 7702 gives you 4 opportunities. Has the opportunity to grow, has death benefit to your beneficiaries if you were to pass away. So if you took, let's say, $100,000 of this and put it into that life insurance policy, that may turn around all of a sudden and buy you a Roth worth like $350,000 or $380,000. So you instantly just like triple the size of your Roth with life insurance. Okay? And so yeah, you'd have to die, but it still gives your family 3 times what you had. So that's pretty nice, and it's completely tax-free. 3, it offers long-term care benefits. So whatever that face amount is, you can access that face amount for your long-term care. So if you're concerned going on having long-term care benefits, that would be a great way to actually have now a long-term care program that you don't have to pay for, because it's part of the Roth. And 4, it offers loan provisions. I want to give you an example of the loan provisions. And this is how, I guess, a wealthier person works with a tax attorney to come up with abilities to earn lots of money and not pay tax, right? So when you come to the lab session, if you come to the last session, you come to the building, I own the entire complex, okay, when you come there. I bought that complex through a holding company. So real estate, dabbling in it, right? I turn around and I started a holding company. That holding company only owns that building. That's all it owns. But it was a brand new holding company that had no credit and it needed a loan to buy the building. So who did it go to? It came to me and asked me for a loan. So I gave the loan out of my 7702. Interesting. So I lent the holding company the money to buy the building. And then you'll see there's a bunch of tenants in there that all pay rent. So as they all pay rent, the holding company would have to pay taxes on that profit, right? Nope. Because legally, I charged enough interest to the holding company that the IRS was okay with. I charged enough interest that the holding company can't make a profit. It's backwards. So it collects all this rent and it has to make a payment to my Roth every month. And as it makes the payment to my Roth, it's so healthy in interest that it doesn't have a profit. All that money goes into my Roth, And my Roth is what? Tax-free. I don't pay any taxes on any of it. Okay? So it has the lending power. Pretty neat setup. I've done that several times. I bought a medical building down in Fort Lauderdale, Holy Cross Hospital. There was a building right across the street. I went through and I bought that building with my 7702, and the whole plan was to turn around and turn that into a 4-story medical building. Well, I was pretty stupid. I was very young, very naive when I bought it. I did not do a lot of research, and it needed an elevator and it needed a chiller. And both of them were about $1.4 million a piece. And I was like, oh boy. So I was very, very concerned. And this guy walks in the doors. I was there kind of like doing some cleanup stuff, and he was just wearing like shorts and a t-shirt and a hat and whatever. And he came in, I'm kind of like, we're not open. He's like, no, I just have a question. What's that? He goes, is this building for sale? I'm thinking, right? I said, well, it could be if the price is right. He says, well, what are you thinking that you'd want to ask for it, or who do I talk to about it? I said, well, who are you with? He says, the United States Postal Service. I sold it to them, sold it to them for 3 times what I bought it for, all the way into my life insurance policy, paid no tax. And I never replaced the chiller or the AC or the elevator. It's interesting what you can do, right? So that puppy has grown to be a lot of money, all completely tax-free. So sometimes you might want to convert money from here to a 7702. The only thing that stops you from doing that is if you are insurable or you're not. Okay? So, any questions on the IRA, 401k, or the Roth?
So that Roth, you never pay all that money like you do, you never pay tax on it.
I will never pay taxes on it, nor will my kids ever. Pretty crazy. Pretty crazy, right? Okay, so you have a 401k at work, right? You have one at work, 401k? 403b, because you're a teacher. So you decide, because you're over 59 and a half, you can move that 403b out to the IRA. You can see about whether you want to start doing some conversions, right? Or at least get it out of the mutual funds and get it into some nice.
I have FRS.
Yeah, Florida State, yeah.
Yeah, which I can move out.
Yeah.
Investment.
Yeah. So you can move that, right? But with the 403b, so did you take the 403b with match contributions, or you're doing
No,
the
they
pension?
don't have that
So
with
you're
my
doing the pension.
contribution. That's totally independent.
Yeah, so you can do either. A lot of times you can do either. Does anybody have a match 401k? No, nobody has match 401k? You do. Match 401k.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So the thing is, if you're not of age, but if you're of age and you move that out, a lot of times people ask, well, if I move that out, then my 401k is done. And no, that's not the answer. You can still participate with your 401k, no problem. You still will get the match contributions off of whatever you put in there. You're just moving the lump of money out of there, and you do that at 59 and a half.
You can do it as many times as you want.
Have to check with your employer. So different employers will do different things. Some of them will let you do it like once a year. Some will let you do it 3-4 times a year. So you just have to check with them. But you have to be 59 and a half. Okay? So you're not going to be able to because you're too young. See? What happens when you're so young? All right. So here's the crazy thing. These are the buckets that we just talked about, right? And so many people are so concerned about diversifying and getting that great rate of return and making sure that they're safe. Why would you not spend the time to figure out how to diversify to avoid as much tax as possible? Right? Because again, if you're not paying that tax, that's the same as getting a rate of return. So that's why we spend so much time on it. Okay? Taxable income. I think this is super important to understand. The first column, everything in there is 100% taxable. Right? So your wages that you're earning, pensions. Now there are some people who have New York pensions that may not be taxable, very, very unique situation, but for the most part pensions are taxable. Interest, dividends, rental incomes, qualified plans, distribution and tax-free, municipal bonds. How are tax-free municipal bonds 100% taxable? It's a tax-free municipal bond. Can you answer that one?
Yes, so you may not be taxed on the interest, but I think the interest is grossed up in your income.
So close. Nope. So what happens is, let's say you buy a Colorado municipal bond, and when you buy it, it's maybe paying 7.5% interest, and when you decide to sell it, the new ones are at 5.5%, so you sell yours at a premium. You would sell yours for more than you bought it for. That's taxable income. All interest is tax-free. And of course, tax-free income doesn't count towards your income. So, yeah. The middle column, Social Security. So as you start receiving that Social Security benefit, only 50% of it is countable as income. Okay? So we're talking about the income brackets. You only have to count 50% of it. So if you made $5,000 as a couple per month in Social Security benefits, only $2,500 a month would be counted in your taxable income. That's a big thing to remember, that it's only counted 20 or 50%. Okay? And then what do we have over here that's completely tax-free? Qualified Roth and distributions of 7702 done properly. Now you know what 7702 is. Okay? And I'm not going to say that he does, because I have no idea. But be careful, because a lot of insurance agents will sell you vehicles that look, smell, and sound like a 7702, and they're not qualified to be a 7702. So to be very, very, very careful with that. Okay? I had a very, very nice Chinese couple come in last week who had 5 policies that they all thought were 7702s, and not one of them qualified to be a 7702. All bought over 10 years ago, all $1 million a piece. None of them qualified as a 7702. Okay? So be really careful of how those are set up. And I don't think that the insurance agents purposely sell them wrong. I think they just really don't understand. Provisional income tax. This is important because this is when we're looking at how much of your Social Security income is going to be taxable. Okay? So, if you're married and you make below $32,000 of adjusted gross income, and you're receiving your Social Security, there's no tax on the Social Security. Right? So again, we have to count 50% of it towards our income brackets. We're going to go into our income brackets, and we're going to see where we come out, right? So we're counting 50% of it into our brackets. We get our standard deduction, and we're coming into here. So if after we go through as a married couple and our adjusted gross income is less than $32,000, we don't pay any tax on our Social Security. $32,000 is pretty much a poverty level, right? But if our adjusted gross income lands between $32,000 and $44,000, how many of you just thinking about what your Social Security income would be at that point, 50% of it, and then if you're pulling other money out of your IRA, are going to probably be into this bracket, then the Social Security you're receiving, 50% of it will be taxed. So if you are over $44,000, then 85% of it will be taxed. And guess what legislation's got on the chopping block this year? In 2024, it's already in the ballots to go through, that Social Security will be 100% taxed, no matter what income brackets. They're just going to count it as income. Okay? Again, they're going after everybody in retirement. They're not trying to go after the working person. Kind of interesting. That's one of the things that's on there, is that they're going to do away with this whole table and just go through and any Social Security you receive, it will be taxes or your income. 100%. Okay? But as you can see, and do the numbers, you guys are probably going to be in a $44,000 income bracket in retirement. You just think about where you're at now, so you're going to probably do the 85% tax level. Yes?
So, if you file jointly and over into another bracket, is it advisable to file
Single? No. But what is advisable, and I'll talk about this more when I cover Social Security, but I'll cover it right now since you asked, is, you know, Social Security is growing at 8%, right, until you're 70. You can suspend it if you're for retirement or older, and they start giving that 8% for every month you don't get it. But you can actually suspend your Social Security after 70 years of age. So what if you're receiving your Social Security and come like, say, July or August, because your Social Security and your pension are going to get up to pushing you into these brackets, you said, yo, hold on, let's just suspend this for the rest of the year. Let me take the money out of my Roth, live the rest of the year, and then I'll turn it back out in January. And you're in a freaking 0 tax bracket. You're in poverty. As far as the IRS is concerned, you're in poverty. As far as your pocketbook is concerned, you still have the same income coming because you've set up these buckets. That's why I'm so heavy on set these buckets up now, pay the taxes now, so you can avoid all this crap in the future. This is how you will avoid what legislation does. And we'll talk about how you can do it with your pensions too, okay? You have a pension, right? You cannot suspend your pension through school. That's gonna be an issue. So you'd have to be looking a little bit different and going, okay, I have to keep that through, all the way through December, but when can I suspend my wife, my social security to be in a zero tax bracket, and I'll just pull money from my Roth and live, and then I'll turn it back on in January.
Yeah,
You know?
with the pension, I can move it out or investment.
You can move it, you can move your pension out, and we'll talk about privately setting up, because you can suspend private pensions, you just can't suspend work pensions. Yep, so that may be your opportunity. So, what did we go through and cover here? Tax rates could be much higher in the future, considering what's happening, right? Retirement accounts like 401ks, IRAs may be exposed to amounts of tax rates that are moving forward, right? Do we think tax rates are going to go higher or lower in the future?
Higher.
Probably higher. They do go up and down though, but probably higher. So,
With the debt going up.
okay, be prepared to have fewer deductions in retirement. There's a lot of things that'll be taken away. Example, if you sell a house right now, right? So it's your primary residence, you live there for more than 2 years, and you sell the house, you get a deduction, right? Of, do you know how much? $250,000 per person. So you and your husband, so $500,000. So you buy a house for $500,000, it goes to $1 million. You live in it for 2 years and sell it, you would pay no capital gains tax because you have a $500,000 exclusion off of that. Your $500,000 you originally bought it for isn't taxed, so now you pay no tax. That's the beautiful thing. And you can do that as many times as you want in your lifetime, as long as you live there for 2 years at your primary residence. Off the table next year is what they're talking about. Because they're like, wait, that's the same as investing into any other investment. And if you had the opportunity that thing grew, why should you not pay capital gains tax on it? So it'll be 15%, you know, but they're also talking about changing the capital gains tax to 20%. The flat one instead of 50 will be 20%. Okay? And they're talking.
Nationwide, that real estate change?
Oh yeah. This is all federal legislation. So this is the legislator on Capitol Hill making all these changes to our voting. And it'll be snuck in the different little things that you kind of like, and you go, yes! And then you voted on all that, but you didn't mean to. It sucks how they do it, right? How about this? You have bought Coca-Cola stock many years ago. $50,000. Now it's worth $5 million. Well, obviously, if you turn around and you sold it right now, you'd have the capital appreciation on that $4,950,000. But if you died today and you left this to your children, it's called a step-up basis. They step up to the new $5 million. So now from the day you die to when they actually decide to liquidate it, if let's say it's gone up by $300, they'd be taxed on the $300. If it went down by $300, they get a $300 tax credit. So that's called a step-up. And there's no limit to how much your stocks can step up to your beneficiaries. Except for 2024, it's on the ballot to be chopped. Just think about how much revenue they can generate from somebody who dies, right? Because now they're getting taxed on the capital appreciation of the house. So you own a house, you bought it for the $500,000, it's worth $1 million, you pass away, your son, daughter inherit it, they now will have to pay the capital appreciation on that house inherited when you die. You then end up with your stocks, they now have to pay the capital appreciation on that stock. They end up with your IRA, they now have to pay the taxes on that IRA over 10 years. But you can create this stuff where they can't touch you. And that's what the whole class is about, right? So, prepare for having fewer deductions in retirement, and amount of taxes you pay tomorrow will depend upon what kind of planning you do today, right? The amount of taxes that you pay in these Roths will determine what you decide to convert and move today. So, for those of you 59 and a half, I applaud you because you can actually make these moves and do this stuff. For those of you who are not 59 and a half, that kind of sucks. You have really until 2026, 25 to get this done before they're going to raise all the tax brackets, but still will be the end of the world if it's a case where you run to 26. You know, we can run those tables and show you what the tax may be at that point. Okay. So, the class says review your last 3 years tax returns. See where you're at. I honestly say hire a tax attorney and have them review it for you to truly see where you're at. See if there's any way that you can go through and mitigate things. I have a couple that came to a class And then they came in and, we ran through and ran some tax stuff for them. We actually employ tax attorneys in our office. So we had one of them just play around and run it. And the interesting thing was, is they owned a building that they were renting to the United States Post Office. I sold mine to them, but they were renting to them. And what's interesting is that one is the school principal and one is the IT for the school department. So they both have W-2s, right? They're receiving rental income from the building that they own. That rental income is enough income that they should have been paying quarterly taxes. Okay? When you receive 1099 income and it reaches a certain bracket, if you're not paying quarterly taxes, you get penalized. Okay? There's a penalty, a lump sum of like $800 that they penalize, and then they penalize 8% interest every month that you didn't pay it. So for years, these people have been not doing quarterly taxes and paying this penalty and paying all this interest at the end of the year when their accountant went through and did their taxes and just recorded it and never said anything to them. First thing we popped and said, hey, we're gonna start doing quarterly taxes and we're gonna save you this. I had another young lady who's a pharmacist and her parents went through a divorce and she decided to buy a house for her mom. Turns around right in November of last year, pulls $640,000 out of her investment bucket right here, pulls 640 grand out of this bucket and buys a house for her mom. So much capital appreciation on that, she should have been paying quarterly taxes. Well, how the heck did she even know she was going to do that in November? She didn't. There was no way possible. That's not what the rule says. The rule says within this time period, if you are over this amount, you owe quarterly taxes for the entire year. She missed 3 payments of quarterly payments because she took out in November. She didn't even know she was going to do it. She owed 3 quarters. She got penalized. 3 payments she didn't have it, and interest on the entire thing. She had a $48,000 penalty from the IRS. Pulling $640 grand out of her account to buy the house for her mom. No good deed goes unpunished. Should understand. So, I reviewed 3 year last year tax returns. Consider what may be a desired balance of how much you'd want to have taxable and maybe how much you'd want to have in the Roth bucket. Throw something else in there. If any of you have parents who are sick, ailing, what have you, okay, and they happen to have an IRA, this happens so much. People come in the office and they go, oh, my mom is sick, she's in the assisted living community, or we have an aide taking care of her that we're legally paying for, whatever the case may be. So we're paying the aide with mom's social security, mom's pension, mom's savings account, right? That's all the money the family can receive tax-free. But that's what they're paying her with because they don't want to touch mom's IRA. Well, if you're paying this legit situation of an aid for care, or you're paying assisted living legit for aid, that's a tax deduction. That should all be paid out of the IRA because if you have that IRA, that's one way to not pay taxes on it, is to take the medical deduction off the amount that you're paying. And keep mom's social security, keep mom's tax credit, because you're going to inherit that tax-free. Right? So if you have a parent that's having issues or what have you, make sure you're using the money out of their IRAs. Understand the difference between tax planning and tax preparation. Hiring a tax attorney versus a CPA. Massive difference, okay? Because it can really save you and work a lot in your benefit. And be proactive because whatever you save now is going to go through and prepare you for later on, right? So if you would, in your book, grab out your questionnaire. You can fill it out. You don't have to do the evaluations, I'll get the next week, but you can fill it out before the night's finished. But if you just flip it and answer these first 4 questions, it's going to cover this section that we just covered. We're going to collect this from you tonight, and then we'll give it back to you again next week. But just answer those first 4, and then we'll take a break. You guys like? Does it make sense? Have I lost anybody? Yeah, and then just flip to the next page and just answer these 4 here about taxes. So Nolan, this is a 501c3, not-for-profit organization. Pulls the curtains back and talks all about concept, no actual names of companies, names of products. You can talk about concepts of products like the 7702. I'll cover all like about insurances, annuities, life insurance, what have you. No solicitation of any type of business whatsoever. During the class, there's a lab session that comes. They can actually bring in their personal documentation if they want and have all of it reviewed and then try to put like class information together with what they're doing. Again, no solicitation of business at all. And then that paper that says prepare, that's what you're going to sign and give to us, stating that you're not going to mention the name of any type of a company, rate of return, blah, 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 and I have to sign it also. Okay? And that will collect you. So if you go out the door and head straight down past the stairs, the bathrooms are on the left-hand side. If you go up the stairs and down that same direction, there's a break room that has some vending machines and stuff. This is the only room in Kaiser University that allows you to have food or drink in it. So you're more than welcome to get stuff and bring it back if you want, or next week you're more than welcome to bring stuff if you would like. And so we'll go through and take a break, and we'll come back like maybe 1:45. We'll finish up. Unless you guys don't want to, it's totally up to you.
Go over the backdoor Roth, I saw it here.
Yes,
They were really good with it.
I did not. So the backdoor Roth is for individuals who make too much income to be able to have a Roth. So the page shows that if you guys a couple are over 218,000, you cannot have a Roth. Okay. However, you can still have an IRA. So there are deductible IRAs and there's non-deductible IRAs. So you can actually put money into an IRA and not take it as a tax deductibility, but the interest will grow tax deferred. You can get tax on the interest later. So obviously, you never want to commingle one that you've already paid tax on the income with one that you've never paid tax on anything. Because if you do, the IRS will go working for you, so everything's taxable just like the time. You don't ever want to commingle those, all right? So the issue is, you can go through and put money into the IRA and then instantly convert it to the Roth. Simple as that. So it's kind of like you go to a bar and the guy says, no, you can't come to the front door and drink. If you walk around and come to the back side door, I'll give you all the drinks you want. Same, right? So you can put money into the IRA and then you can convert it instantly to the Roth. So it's a way that a wealthier person can have a Roth. Rules though. If you have an IRA, including your 401k at work, then you can't do the back door because of the fact that when you consider conversion, you're not putting money in. So that's what I don't talk about too much, because clearly a lot of people don't qualify for it because they do have a 401k, some type of plan through work, and so they're just not able to do the back door Roth. Now I do it because I have absolutely zero IRA, and I make too much money to go through and do a Roth. So every year we make our contributions to our non-deductible IRA, and it's put into the Roth back door. But I just, 30 years ago, it's very rare to
There's something weird going on with plan of work. They gave that ability within my 401k last month.
to do what? To put money into the Roth?
In-plan taxable money and make an in-plan conversion to a Roth within my 401k. Just happened last month. That's why I was shocked when you were talking about this.
Yeah, so the new Secure Act is allowing things, but it really won't happen until 2024. So I don't know for sure that you can actually make contributions this year, but you can probably sign up for it, and in 24 you can do it. So there's a couple things are going to happen.
All right, I'm going to double check the dates, but
Yeah, just bring it with you in the
it
lab
was an
session.
email
It was in the lab session.
that came out, and I was like shocked to see it.
Yeah.
Because income limits were, the absolute amounts, I was really high.
I'm going to talk about 401ks and match contribution stuff next week, and I'll also talk about what's happening next year with the Secure Act and how the employers will be able to put money into the Roth side of a 401k also if they so desire. Right? You guys want to bathroom or walk around or anything, or it's totally up to you. Try and come back by 1:45. And we'll cover healthcare. No, she'll collect them at the end, because we're going to answer some questions in the healthcare and questions in the legal. Yeah. To evaluate what's important. But I like to evaluate for real. Stuff on there. Oh.
And you only got your business.
That's right.
Oh, thank you. You go ahead.
This is good. Saturday, it's late.
Yeah, 50 lashes, man.
You know, I took the wife on, I live in Miami.
Oh, okay.
And,
Well, thanks for coming up.
Yeah, no, my house was quite a journey, and, you know, there's only that train that gets here at 6.
Yeah, yep.
And I just took the.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
There was rush hour.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
So then the last train going down is what time?
Yeah, my train is scheduled for 9, so I'm gonna have to leave here like at 8:40.
Okay.
Unfortunately, sorry.
Okay. I was thinking, cause I didn't know it was 9 or 9:30. I was
You know,
I take the right a lot.
Do you?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, this is my first time taking it.
Did you VIP or did you do just regular stuff?
No, I just did the regular coach. What's the difference in VIP?
So they have a lounge, which is really nice. You can go to before. It's got all kinds of nice food, wines, what have you. And then when you get on board, the seats are totally different. These are all in like Italian leather. They're super comfortable, much larger. You have workstations and tables and what have you. And then they also serve boxes of like cheese and stuff, and candy and alcoholic drinks, soft drinks, whatever you want, all the way down.
Maybe next week when I come up.
Just don't come drunk.
Yeah, no,
Just don't come drink, but you'll have dinner.
You can try it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Try it, see if you like it.
Yeah, kind of about driving, and I looked at, the GPS, it's like 2 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the we did last time we flew, and because my husband's brother had done it, we're like, what?
Yeah.
He like, we parked it. We were like, oh my, like we did it for spring break back in March. We went down to Virgin Islands. We parked at the Gateway Tri-Rail and took the Tri-Rail all the way down to the
Oh, you
Miami
Tri-Rail.
airport. And so it was like $7.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah. And then it went all the way to the airport, and then just got up, went up the escalator, went to our gates, checked in, then we came back from the trip, which then the flight got delayed, so we were like almost to the edge of missing the last Tri-Rail of the night to get all the way back. I was like, well, then we're all gonna have to get an Uber and split it. But then just took it back up, and the cars were still there and safe. And
Because the Tri-Rail, the right line, I believe,
Right.
if you're flying and you're using the first class, the parking is free. They also censor out to get your bags, take your bags off, which is nice. And when you get down to whichever airport, they have airport transportation, takes you right from Brightline right to your flight. And then picks you up, takes you right back to Brightline, so you can use that. I have not chose to do it yet because we fly so much internationally that you can't ever count on your flights coming in on time at all. So we just don't ever do it. I have a kind of throwaway car that I just take and park in the airport for the whole month and a half that we're going. So I know it's there and whatever, so I will have a fit and total cool. So wherever I take one of them and just leave it there all month.
yeah,
And usually the fix, it's already got all the paint missing off the roof. So the
ours-
jet fuel's not good to paint jobs.
yeah, we felt, because I was kind of hesitant about leaving it at the Tri-Rail, because the Gateway Tri-Rail is kind of,
Yeah.
Remote.
It's like those cars.
but it was like the 12-year-old family van, so you're
Oh,
like,
there you go.
"Ah,
Oh, see.
okay.
So that's exactly.
But
Yeah,
it
so
was,
we,
it worked out great.
we do a lot of eating out. So we cruise down Tri-Rail to Fort Lauderdale, and then do the New River. You know, so they have the water taxis and stuff, so we can water taxi down, do right where we want, water taxi up, get back. And they have the Tri-Rail vans that run through the Cheesecake Factory right there at the New River. So you can always jump on that, it takes you right back down. It's a very short walk there. So that's what we use it for. So we do that.
Nice.
Yeah, it's fun. They now have it to Orlando too, so we have our annual pass to Disney and to Universal. So we'll start shooting over now with the Orlando.
How far is it from here to Orlando?
But 2.5 hours.
Yeah, but I think on the train it's an hour and 15 or 17 minutes. So, to the airport, and then I first have to get whatever to. So I'd probably just get a rental car over to the.
You're gonna need one,
So, you're gonna be in the parks.
Yeah.
Get a hotel right there. Okay, so the moral of the story here,
Yeah.
maximize your raw if at all possible.
Yeah.
Minimize what you put in here.
Yeah.
Wow. That whole thing about the lower tax bracket and retirement is what I've always said, okay, well, you're getting taxed higher, you're saving the tax right away.
So then in that situation, we don't convert as much. So there are times when we don't convert, but for the class, they talk a lot about doing the conversion.
So I didn't even know, so that suspension is something you do on your own, right, on the Social Security website?
Yep.
Didn't know that was done.
Absolutely. If you do it before 7, you keep getting 8%. If you do it after, you don't get that 8%. But it doesn't make a difference. You still have income coming from it. The only time it really screws up is if you want to give as much as you can to your beneficiaries, right? If you think about it, you're going to suspend your pension and your Social Security. Because in both situations, she's going to get your Social Security, maybe your pension, whichever Social Security is higher, right? So which one of yours is higher. Because whoever passes away gets the higher one.
Right.
And then if you elect a pension, so maybe to your spouse gets the pension, right? The smaller Social Security is going to go away. But in either situation, kids are not getting Social Security or pension. So if you're now taking money out of your investments to live and suspending the Social Security and pension that they cannot get, you're really eating into your beneficiaries' assets. So it'll affect your beneficiaries if you're going to play that game. So instead of just getting a life insurance policy, if you're concerned about that, so when you die, they get life insurance money tax-free, and therefore you don't care about sending your inheritance. Always there. Always there. So I had this, I've had a couple times it happened actually. The young lady who does the bulk of the planning in this particular office here, that you guys would come to, is, how old is she? 29? She's gonna be 29, right? She's gonna be 29. Turning 29. So I've had several engineers come in and they're like, oh, I wanna see like how she does all the calculations on all the software that. So it's great, come on in, meet with her and sit down with her, and it's so hilarious. I've had it happen 3 times actually. One guy almost made it through the whole thing, but the other 2, like halfway through, is like,
And she's very passionate when she speaks, so she like gets very into everything, so you have to go along with her at the same
This is fast. See, that girl is fast. It's like, oh my gosh, when she goes through this stuff and goes through it. And the tax laws and everything that she has memorized, it's just like insane. She's a trip. So if you don't meet with me, that's in the 3 minutes. She's a trip. So you work for an RIA that brings on RIAs, is what you're saying, or you?
No, I have an RIA.
Well, you
Wealth
have an RIA.
Management, and then we have other advisors that work with us. It's IARs.
Okay, so it's your RIA.
Yes.
Very nice. Very nice. Who's your FMO for your insurance and stuff?
You know what? We don't really have one.
Yeah?
We have a good relationship with. Is that who you guys are? Are you guys an FMO?
So I basically own an FMO. Yeah, so Advisors XL out of Topeka, Kansas.
Really? Okay.
So we have 440 employees. And, Awesome. So we're one of the only FMOs that you can actually have your RIA through our FMO.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we cover like all your E&O insurance, do all your billing, everything.
Really?
Take it all off the table. So unless you're at like about 110 million under management to 120, somewhere around there, it's like the break-even point. Go ahead and do your own billing, do all that because it'll be less expensive. But if you're below those numbers, then you actually would save money running through our FMO.
Okay.
Yeah. But so that's the break point, about 115, 120 million. We have about 33 billion under management.
Okay. What platform do you guys use for custodian?
So we have Fidelity and Schwab. So either one. Or you can stay with your own custodian, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, we're at Schwab.
With Schwab, you have full line of banking. You can do CDs and do checking and bank accounts and all.
Correct, yeah.
Clocks may be different time than the rest of school. Hopefully he didn't take out to go get his wife.
Yeah.
I told her if you wanted her to come to center Thursday night, it's the same class. I say the same thing over and over again.
Patrick, how many of these a year do you buy?
Every month.
Oh, really?
There's 300 and I think it's 311 universities that have this, and I don't know how many instructors they have. You have to have 5 years experience of RA, and so have you had your RA for 5 years? So I mean, you can hook up with them and probably do it in Miami if you wanted to.
You found your coffee?
See, I figured they had to have coffee here. They had to have coffee.
That's what I was thinking.
It's a university. Who
Check
did,
it out.
who did you ask that said no?
Actually, the front desk lady.
Well, shit.
This is her first day at work.
Tomorrow's your
But the-
orientation.
The young lady with the curly hair and glasses? Curly hair and glasses? No, okay, she's been here a long time, but she didn't drink coffee. All right, we're gonna cover healthcare. We're gonna kind of fly through it, but what we're gonna talk about is several risk management tools related to successful healthcare planning includes which Medicare, original Medicare, and Medicare Advantage plans, Medicare supplements. I'll talk very, very little about HSAs and some about long-term care policies, okay? So, Medicare has 4 parts, A, B, C, and D. A and B is actually for the medical providers, and C and D is going to be your advantage plans and your medication programs, right? So I like to go through and show on this that this last year, for the very first time, we actually had a COLA increase on Social Security and a Medicare decrease in premiums for Medicare. It's the first time ever that we've had that. So Medicare went from what was like $170 a month to $164.90. So it'll be interesting. They just announced that next year Social Security benefits COLA is going to be 3.2%. The inflation's already outpacing that, so it's not going to help them a whole lot. I don't know how much their Medicare premiums are going to be. Usually, whatever they give you in a nice COLA in Social Security, which they like to give a lot of times before the election rounds come up, and then they announce the Medicare stuff later.
And what's a COLA?
The COLA is the increase of your Social Security benefits. So the percentage that they're going to give you each year on, sometimes you don't get anything, and sometimes they'll give a decent increase. But then a lot of times they come through with the Medicare increase in premiums, and it's usually higher than the COLA you got. So you kind of go backwards if you're living just off of Social Security. I like to cover the things that this does not cover, almost rather than what it does cover. So when we talk about Part A, which is your hospitalization, it does not cover long-term care. So it's going to cover just the stay in the hospital, not for the assistance of somebody coming into your home or going to assisted living, what have you. You do have to have worked for at least 40 quarters. Okay, so you have to have your full Social Security benefits, or your spouse has to have 40 quarters, then you can qualify for Medicare. But if you're not married, you don't have the 40 quarters, you will not receive Medicare, and Medicare does have a $1,600 deductible for Part A. Part B does not cover dental, vision care, cosmetic surgery, alternative treatments, acupuncture, chiropractors, hearing aids, routine foot care. And Part B has a $226 a year deductible. Then what happens is they cover 80% of the medical expense, you cover 20%. Okay? So they're going to cover 80% of whatever the hospital care is, whatever the medications are, the doctor's visits, you're liable for 20%. The original Medicare, and I like to show this table, which is in your book, because a lot of times agents will talk about, when they're doing like long-term care policies, they'll say, hey, look, to bring the cost down, why don't you do like a 100-day elimination period? So you cover the first 100 days, and then after that, the long-term care policy will pay the difference or pay whatever it's going to pay. And then they'll say something like, the first 100 days of Medicare is covered anyways, so that way you can stretch that out. And I hate when agents say that, because the way it works here is 0 to 60 days is actually 0. So if you go into the hospital, into a rehab situation, okay, 0 to 60 days, you pay nothing. But once you hit the 61st day to the 90th day, you pay $400 a day. Okay, so if you're in a hospital, then you end up going into a rehab, and you're there and you hit that 61 days, you're paying $400 a day. And then once you turn around and you hit the 91st day to the 150th day, you're paying $800 a day. And again, it's in your book, so you have that. These numbers can change because this is 2023. When you hit 151 days, you're paying 100%. Okay? So I don't like the fact they go, oh, well, the first 100 days is covered by Medicare anyways, because it's not. You're going to be paying for some of that. So the whole point is if you have long-term care or you have some type of a situation that, you know, you're going to rely on Medicare, just have this money someplace set that you can access it. Okay? Just that you have a thought this money is set for any type of health issues that we may have down the road. Part C is your Medicare Advantage plans. So with the Medicare Advantage plans, it covers both A and B, and most of them have a drug program put into it. What happens on an Advantage plan is when you go to hit 65, you're applying for Medicare, and you're a really healthy person that's not on a lot of medications, that maybe doesn't see the doctor very often, you might choose to go with the Medicare Advantage plan. Because what happens is you don't have a monthly premium, but every time you go to the doctor or go get a medication, you'll then pay a copay for the doctor visit or a copay for the medication. So you're going to pay a higher copay out of pocket to do that, but if you're not seeing many doctors, this might be a route to go. My personal feelings are, if you can afford a supplement, I would go with Part B and a supplement policy, because at least the supplement policy we're going to talk about next, you're going to know exactly what your premiums are, and it's going to cover that 20%, so you don't really have any expense. You know what your monthly bill is. This you could end up into a couple different challenges. Number one is you might all of a sudden start having a lot of issues and it be expensive, far greater than what the supplement would have been. Also, you decide to then switch from this Advantage plan to a supplement, you have to be insurable. You could be rated or you could even be declined. And so if you're declined, then this is going to be your program for the rest of your time. Okay? I'm not much of a gambler, so I personally just wouldn't do an Advantage plan, but that's me. There are a lot of people who do that. Part D is a drug program, pretty simple. They're pretty inexpensive. You can add it to any of the different programs, might be $15, $20 a month, and you know, covers your different medications. So the Medicare supplement that I was just talking about goes through and does away with the co-payments, the co-insurance, and the deductibles. It's going to cover the other 20%. So therefore, you're going to have a monthly premium, and some of these can be fairly creative of how it can go. And here's what I'm going to explain on this side. All of the products are the same. They're regulated by the federal government. So you might go, well, I like company A because I know them. I've never heard of company Z. They're the same product regulated by the same government. Go with whoever has the best price, forget the name. Okay? In this product only. Forget the names. Go with the product that has the best price. Because that's the only thing that's going to be different is they're going to change. Now, what's interesting is that each product line has a territory that is assigned, and it's going to be the best price in that territory. Okay? So this is not a product that you can go and ask your brother who lives down in Miami, hey, you know, who are you with? I'm up here in West Palm, because West Palm's provider that has the best price here may not be at all who's the best price in Miami. Matter of fact, it's not. It's not going to be. Okay? It could even go off of zip codes, not only counties. So it might be difficult to even ask a neighbor or coworker who they're with. Okay? Going through and finding an agent is also sometimes a little bit difficult. So with agents, they could be exclusive. Like they might just work for one main carrier. And obviously that's who they're going to talk about. And their carrier might not be the best priced in your area, right? So you might pay a little bit more than if you went with a different carrier. So some of these people will say, no, I'm an independent, which means I can write whoever I want, right? But the crazy thing about insurance, and this is all insurance, is if you don't write enough business a year, you can't be with the company, right? So if you pick a company A and you start writing with them, and then you want to write with company B, but you only write like 1 or 2 policies, they will drop you. You can't continue to write for them. So what I would do is there's a thing called a field of marketing office, an FMO. Here, I just asked him, who's your FMO, right? Because what happens is, when I ask somebody who their FMO is, now you know that that agent is running through a group that is writing for everybody. Because an FMO goes through and helps out independent agents be contracted with all of the companies. And because an FMO has 1,500, 3,000 agents that are all, they don't work for them. They just kind of like utilize the platform. But because there's so many agents there, you can guarantee that through all those agents, they're running enough business for all of the companies. So one agent with the good FMO could write a one-off in your area, okay, and get you the best price. So when you usually meet with somebody like that, they're going to ask you what you're trying to qualify for, what you're trying to hit, and they're going to bring you the best price, unless they're greedy and just want to make a lot of commission. They're going to bring you the best price product. So my question would be, if you meet an independent, is just say to them, hey, so which FMO do you write through? You don't give a crap what they say, but they'll tell you a name. If they tell you a name, then they're probably okay. You'll probably get every product that's out there. But if they go, oh, I'm not with an FMO, I kind of do like my own thing, but I'm with it, I probably would pick a different agent. Okay? It's just thought on it. If this is something that's a very big concern to you, we have an FMO, and we have enough individuals, and I have advisors that can talk to you all about this without soliciting you, just the same. If you want any questions you want to know about Medicare or whatever, I have people you can talk to if you want to. Okay? But again, the supplements do not cover long-term care, vision, dental, hearing aids, or private duty nurses. They're not for a long-term care situation. Medicare can be confusing. I mean, they can't even get the alphabet right. Right? The reason why some of the letters are missing is because some of those programs are no longer with us. They're actually doing away, I believe, with the F product very soon. G will be one of the only opportunities that you can go that will have the most offerings. But those are the different products that you can say, hey, I want this, 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 and then that's how you're going to get the pricing, is depending upon what you want to go through and actually have as far as a service. Okay? I like to show this because on the left is showing having the supplement, on the right is showing having the Advantage plan. I travel a ton, as I was saying. We've gone more this year than we've been home, and a lot of that is internationally. I would never do the Advantage plan because, look, on the very bottom, it does not cover anything but the United States. So I personally would never do an Advantage plan for that reason. So just some little things there that if you do travel and you're out of the country, your health insurance is not going to be with you if you're on Medicare. Frequently asked questions. I have coverage through work. Do I have to still sign up for Medicare? Okay? So, the answer is, if your company has more than 20 employees and you have health insurance, you don't have to sign up for Medicare. I would highly recommend that you do it. Okay? It's very simple. You just go on their site and you just register, and then all you do is just decline having the Part B because you have health insurance through work. No big deal. You're registered. You're done. Because if you don't do that and you decide to just not register because you have coverage through work, and then you leave your work some 8, 10 years from now, and you go to apply for Medicare, you have to get a form, I think it's a 6614, and take it back to your employer and have your employer sign off that you have been employed with health insurance since you turned 65. Now, I don't know how you left your employer. Maybe it's on good settings, maybe it's on bad settings. Maybe they don't have a human resource department anymore and nobody wants to sign the form. If that happens and you don't have the form signed and you can't prove that you had health insurance, you are penalized. And you get penalized a percentage every month that you did not have health insurance proof. And that penalty will add up through all those years and it will stay with you for the rest of your life. It never goes away. So just register. You can register, I believe it's 3 months before you turn 65, the month of 65, or 3 months after to be fully legal. Just register. Okay? So I have coverage through work. So I think this is a slide. I have coverage through work. So who do I collect first? Do I use Social Security? Do I use my work plan? What do I use? In your book, there's a whole chart that shows you exactly when you would use your employer as primary, when you would use the Medicare as the secondary or primary. So it's all in there. And all based, again, off of how many employees there are and how it works within your company. Okay? Pretty simple on the Medicare explanation. Long-term care. Instead of going through doing all kinds of scare tactics of, oh, this many people, blah, blah, I'll tell you, I like this slide. I think it's one of the coolest things because out of a couple that is like, I guess it's 65 years of age, there is a 7 out of 10 people will have issues with some type of a long-term care, right? Is that what it says? People over 65 will need some type of long-term care. Yeah, 7 out of 10 people will have to have some type of long-term care. 63% of those people, the care providers are going to go through and fund it and pay for it, which means your spouse probably, right? Or maybe you're paying for your parents or your grandparents. But in that situation, that's a huge portion of Americans that are taking money from their own accounts and paying for their parents and their care. Example, I had a lady come in the other day that came to last month's class, and she's taking care of her mom and dad, so she sold her unit and moved into their condo, and she's taking care of mom and dad. And she's using her money to take care of mom and dad. Dad passed away in July of this year, so now she's just taking care of mom and has 2 sisters. So there's 3 of them. So what did I ask her? First question, how's the trust set up? She said, oh, we're equal. Okay. So you're spending your money, you gave up your time to go in and take care of your parents, and you're going to split everything 3 ways, and the house is in the trust to be sold when your mom passes away, but yet it's your primary residence. So now you have to go find a place to live in an interest rate environment that's ridiculous. What are you going to do? Crap, I didn't think about that. She goes, well, my youngest sister said I don't have to give her anything because, you know, she's okay. She hasn't helped out. She doesn't want anything. Okay, but it doesn't say that in the trust. It says that she gets a 3rd. So even if she doesn't want it, but her husband does, or she doesn't want it, but any of her kids do, they all have the legal right to come back after you for it if you don't give her anything, okay? Because it doesn't say in the trust. So just have mom change it. Hey, you know what? You should get a bigger percentage. She doesn't want any of it. The other sister lives in Africa, and so she hasn't been helping out, but originally she did. She helped out for about 4 years of giving mom and dad money. Okay, then make her a percentage. You know, make some type of a thing that you're allowed to stay in the home and you're allowed to buy her percentage out if that's what you wish to do, but maybe give her like 30% and you get 70, right? But mom would have to make those changes to make sure that's set up. So care providers spend a lot of their money and they need to be able to retrieve it back. And I'll tell you, the bottom one I love because out of any situation, no matter who it is, it's going to affect 100% of the family. Right? I mean, look at how it's affecting all of them because now the youngest sister is saying, oh, I don't need anything. I haven't been able to help mom and dad, probably feeling guilty that she hasn't. The oldest sister is like, well, I helped for 4 years, but now I can't because I'm in Africa and I'm too far away and I can't afford it. So everything's being put on this girl. So the parents had to feel like crud. Right? You're saying it just affects everybody. So that's why putting some type of long-term care in place may be a great idea. I am not a big advocate for long-term care policies, though. I just don't care for them. And the reason being, if you have one, it's beautiful. Don't get rid of it. Okay? But for the most part, to go out and shop for them, they're very expensive. They can be very, very inexpensive at the younger age because the odds are in the favor to the insurance company that you're not going to collect it. But as you get older, the odds are in your favor that you're going to probably collect, so they're going to charge more. And we've been seeing increases in long-term care policies. I used to say 40% a year to the other day, 120% increase in 1 year. To where it's getting so bad that the government now has stopped offering it to the government employees. And I'll tell you, the government offers everything to the government employees. They had John Hancock for years. They just brought in MetLife last year, and then a month ago, they said, nope, no more offering it at either company because it's just outrageous. You can't control the price. And that's why I'm not a real advocate for long-term care. So I would look at doing other vehicles. We talked about the 7702 because that has a death benefit and you have full access to the death benefit for long-term care. That could be a way to have long-term care that can't go up in cost for you, but is going to actually be able to assist you. So there's hybrids, as they call them in the industry. Next week, we'll talk about different products that offer hybrids between annuities, and we'll cover the life insurance again so that you can see that you could go that route rather than going and actually buying a true long-term care policy. Okay? But long-term care costs, of course, are going up. I'm not sure where they actually get these numbers from. I'm pretty big in understanding these long-term care numbers because of that foundation I told you we started. We're raising money for all the veterans. So what's interesting is that the numbers how long somebody lasts in an assisted living community is many, 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 many years. We have some veterans that have been in the assisted living community for over 20 years, okay? The nursing home, though, is very, 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 very short. Usually, the longest I've ever seen one of our clients ever hit a nursing home was 7 months. I mean, you go to a nursing home, you usually pass away. I mean, that's the situation. So their numbers are kind of odd here with how they come through and say it. But the least expensive ways to have an assisted living community and have a care provider there. Because trying to have a care provider come into your home is very, very expensive. But you could get creative. So example, with my mom, I went through, and my mom does not like anybody. She does not like anybody living with her. She's not a super friendly person. She doesn't like to be talked too much. Doesn't like me, I talk all the time. So my mom had a lady who was coming in and cleaning her house all the time. Like every week, I think it was. And she paid her, I don't know, $6 come in and clean her whole place. It was ridiculous. So she at least let this lady come in. So then my mom's driving started getting a little bit worse, and so she started asking this lady to like take her to go play Mahjong, which I thought was kind of funny. She was actually giving this lady money to play Mahjong, but if the lady won, my mom took the winnings. If the lady lost, the lady didn't owe her any money. So I contacted this woman and I said, hey, what is your situation? She said, I'm disabled. I'm collecting from the SSDI, Social Security Disability, and of course I can't make more than blah, blah, blah a year or I would lose that. Well, you can give a gift to somebody who's on disability and it will not affect their disability at all. So you can give up to $17,000 a year and it not affect them, okay? So I made her a deal. I said, hey, listen, here's the deal. I will go through, pay for a bunch of food, pay for everything in my mom's house that you can go through and start cooking for her, you can eat, and you can do all this, and I'll give you $600 a month if you just become her best friend. And so that's what we did for many, many years. And this woman was taking her everywhere, taking her shopping, doing all kinds of stuff, what have you. My mom had a car accident 3 years back, damaged her right arm, did not go through rehab. She's a real stud, left after 2 weeks. I don't need rehab, lost the use of her right arm. She loves chocolate, so she starts doing chocolate, thinking that as she does extra chocolate, she'll just shoot up more insulin, and they'll zero each other out. Put herself into a insulin coma, and she hit the floor and messed up her left arm. So now my mom, through rehab and trying to work with her, can't use either of her hands. So she can't pull her pants up, she can't pull them down, she can't cut anything, she can't feed herself, no use of her hands. So now we had to do something with her, and I have a brother who's in Vegas, she was in Ocala, and he opted to take her because he retired a little bit too early, and I think he's going to run out of money. So he's like, hey, I'll take mom. She's got VA benefits. She's got Social Security benefits. You know, she's got kind of a bank account. I'll take her. So him and his wife took my mom out to Vegas. That's where my mom's been now for 4 months. So we sold her place here, and she's out there. So there are ways that you can be creative between family members, or I've had a lot of situations where a wife will have a husband who's got full-blown dementia, and then we'll have another client that has the same situation, and we'll introduce them to each other. And that way, the one wife will take both husbands, like maybe 2 times a week. So have the other wife go out 2 times a week, and then they switch off. And the other wife takes both husbands for 2 days, and they switch off. And that helps a lot because it doesn't cost anything, right? So there are ways that you can try and do stuff. Churches, a lot of times, will have members of the congregation that it's been a sad case, you know, woman's raised 4 kids, husband cheats with the secretary. She, you know, is a care provider, never went to school, just wants to take care, be more than happy to come over and take care of your parents. You know, those types of things. So there are ways of doing it rather than spending these kinds of costs and doing long-term care. You just have to be a little bit creative with it, right? So when you're looking at it, make sure that your health insurance coverage is going to be aligned with your health care needs. So I talked about my mom. My mom and dad actually have a long-term care policy. And my mom was 44 when she had me. So I was the last of 9 kids. She lost several kids before me. So I have 3 brothers that survived, but much older. So I was not in the business when my parents took out their long-term care policy. So as I got my license and I started reviewing things, I was like, well, this is kind of messed up. It said in there that they had to go through and have 90 days of home health care that they paid for before they could put into a claim, okay? So that's very important to read if you have a policy. And so when it said that, it was 90 days consecutively. It wasn't just 90 days of calendar, it was 90 days they had to be paying an aide to be in the house taking care of my dad before they could make a claim. And then I looked, and it constituted 8 hours a day as a day service. That's pretty crazy. So So you're looking at $28, $30 an hour for professional service, 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. My parents didn't have the money. My parents never ever was able to make a claim for that policy. So all the years they paid me the premiums on that, they never collect the penny. So be careful what you have. After that situation happened with my parents, I got licensed and I felt horrible about them, and I feared that happened to them. It probably happened to a lot of other people. So I created a group that you can dial 211 on your phone, and you'll get the hotline out of Tallahassee, and they will review any insurance policy you have with a non-biased opinion. They will explain everything to you about that policy. Okay, 211. And so I created that many, many years ago. It's still going strong, and you can utilize it on any type of contract. I also tell people, don't refer back to your agent on any of this. Refer directly to the company who wrote it. Because the company who wrote it is never, ever going to mislead you. I don't think that the agent means to mislead you. I just think there's a lot of agents out there who do not understand what they're selling. And I think they sell what the manager tells them to go sell. Okay? So, just if you have any policies that you're concerned about, confused with, call the insurance carrier and ask them pertinent questions. Okay? Again, these are things on the lab session. If you've got these type of contracts, you're not sure, you can bring them. We'd be more than happy to go through and answer the questions that you have about them. Okay? The Chinese couple I said that bought the 5 thinking that they were all 7702s and that one of them qualified for it. Out of those 5, 3 of them are actually pretty decent policies. It's just nothing of what they thought they were going to be. But 3 of them were actually told them to go through and keep. The other 2 we told them how they can go through and do some things on a tax situation to help them out. Know the choices of the long-term healthcare protections and plan opportunities. So again, I say just call the companies and ask them. So review any of your Medicare or supplemental insurance coverages that you have. Review your long-term healthcare insurance policies and make sure you're getting the benefits that you are actually paying for. Okay? Because you may think that you have something, you may think you're covered, but then it might not. So we had a case today, a client decided to throw something to us because through his work he's been paying for a long-term disability policy. I'm not fond of long-term disability policies either. Short-term disabilities, love them. Don't like long-term disability policies. They're extremely hard to collect on because the insurance companies will try and weasel their way out any way they can, saying, no, even though you can't do this job, you can still work, right? So I had a nurse who was in a major car accident, became a paraplegic, and the long-term disability policy would not pay because she still had the ability as an RN to work for an insurance company and review insurance claims with a whisper device. Now she wasn't offered the job, but because she had the opportunity that she could still do it, didn't pay her disability. I hate disability policies because of that kind of crap. Short-term, no problem. Short-term will always go through and pay out. They're great. So this guy says to me, hey, I'm a teacher up in New Jersey, and we just picked him up as a client a few months ago, and he says, I do have this long-term care policy. I said, send it to me, let me review it. Right through the school board. Went through and reviewed it, saw all kinds of glitches with it, where they would be able to opt out of all kinds of stuff, pointed out to him. He called the company. He's getting $19,000 of his premiums back. That's pretty cool.
Ooh, I need to do that.
Kind of cool. So bring it with your lab session to look at and see where it's at, okay? So if you would, flip to that sheet again and go through and answer the next 3 portions under the healthcare. Do you guys have any questions on the healthcare stuff that we just went over? All right.
You gonna talk about people who might retire early and what options would be?
Next week, I'm going to get into a lot of that stuff, so yes.
So I have to go to the school board to get a copy of those policies.
Possibly. The benefits department just asking for a deck page. Yeah, so it's a deck page that you want. Deck page, yep. Because the deck page is, because they actually ask for a policy and they say, well, we gave that to you in your handbook, blah, blah, blah. They might charge you like $45 a policy, but a deck page is free. So a deck page will give you all of the information, like how much you paid into it, what the policy is, what the plan, gives you all of this information just on one piece of paper, a deck page.
Okay.
estate planning. So, I want to start off with this. That is, if you have appropriately put the beneficiaries the way that you want them on any of your investments, you have already created a trust. It is non-contestable. It will be paid out exactly as it says. Now, people will go to banks and they'll set up a savings account or checking account, and the bank will say, hey, who are your beneficiaries? Well, I don't know. We'll just bring it back later, and then people never go back. Okay? Banks work on TOD transfer on death. Okay? I don't know why they do that, but I'm going to say beneficiary. They say TOD transfer on death. But if you have listed, so example, you guys have a checking account together, a savings account together, and it's joint. You don't have to list it as a beneficiary, you don't have to serve as a beneficiary, it's joint. But you would want to have your children listed and the exact percentages that you want to go to them, okay? And if for any reason you travel with your children, that there's a chance that all of you could pass together, then you'd want to list contingents. So if your children are not here, who it goes to after them. And if you've listed that on that bank account or on any of your investment accounts, that is a trust. It will follow suit exactly to what it says, nobody can contest it. If you have your 401k, 401k is a little bit different because it is an IRA, individual retirement account. So you have your IRA, she needs to be primary beneficiary if you want to go there, right? You need to be primary beneficiary because she's your spouse. And then you would list your kids as contingent beneficiaries because if somehow the two of you together, then it would go to the kids, uncontestable. So you have 3 kids. So maybe I'm not down because they have 3 kids. 2 of them are awesome. One of them's a little bit, if that one is, they will probably try and contest things, right? Like maybe their son says, you know, after they pass away, you know, mom and dad always said I was their favorite. And they always said I was supposed to get 90% of this, and you were supposed to get 10% between the 2 of you guys. So, you know, they just never had a chance to change it. Believe it or not, if it's not listed appropriately, that is probate, and that will be contested. That will have to go to probate to make sure whether that holds water or not. Okay? But if you've got them listed on those documents, it doesn't make any difference what that kid wants to say, or better yet, what that kid's spouse wants to say. Because that's usually, right? That's usually who interferes, is always the spouses. Okay? Your kids are beautiful. It's whoever you choose to marry. Right? So that is very, very cut and clear. But I'm going to tell you, I would check your beneficiaries every year. Every year. And make sure that they are still correct. Because, yeah, go ahead.
And also check for divorces too, because when my mother passed and then the stuff was getting divided, my brother and his spouse had gotten divorced, but his spouse sued for part of it.
Yep. And so that's one fantastic reason. There can be deaths that occur, there can be marriages, there could be children who are born, there's all kinds of things that happen that way. But the other thing that happens is that these companies are changing their CRM systems a lot, and they're rekeying stuff in all the time, and they could key in a wrong social security number, a wrong name, whatever. So it's just really best for you to check your beneficiary information quite frequently to make sure that they have not messed anything up. Okay? All right, now we'll get into the slides. So we're going to talk about estate planning, the basis of it, healthcare power of attorney, living wills. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of cut through this because I don't remember what slides I left in here, what slides I took out. So, estate planning basics. What actually constitutes an estate? Anything of value that's going to transfer to somebody else is an estate, right? Now, Prince passed away, and he had nothing in writing. Nothing. So there was absolutely no direction of his estate, so it all had to go through probate. And for years, they've tried to figure out who gets what, because everybody came out of the woodwork. They were related, they were a kid, they were this, they were that. Can you imagine all the stuff that he had? It's kind of crazy. They just finally did settle it. I think it was last year, middle last year. Okay? And he's been gone for like 10 years. So kind of crazy. So you want to go through and make sure that you have in writing what goes where. That would be the basis of the estate. Healthcare power of attorney. So, power of attorney is financial, letting somebody have financial responsibility for you. each have retirement plans? This is interesting. So you get into a bad accident, but you don't die, but you're kind of out of it, okay? She has no ability to access your retirement plan. None. Unless she has power of attorney for you. And you're married. Most people never thought about that. Okay? You have to have power of attorney for your spouse to act on your spouse's investments if they have an IRA, an individual retirement account. Now, obviously, if you guys have joint accounts or things like that, that's one thing. Now, she may have her 401k, I mean, you may have your 401k online, that you can access everything and do everything online, right? And she knows your password, well, then she could get in there and she could do some stuff if she needed to. But if they require any type of signatures or what have you, and if they know that you're sick, they're probably going to. They may even suspend his ability to do things online. You're going to have power of attorney. Okay? So that's a big thing, is make sure you have power of attorney for your spouse if you guys have separate IRA accounts. Then you might want to think about doing a limited power of attorney for somebody that you really trust, maybe one of your children, not the bad one, you guys, the good ones, right? And that is because if something happened to the two of you and you can't go through and pay your bills, they would be able to access and do that for you. So the new trusts have about 32 different boxes for you to initial, okay? If you don't have one that has like 32 boxes, you have one of the older ones, and you probably should update and get one of the newer ones. Now, in those 32, there's 2 that you maybe don't want to initial, okay? And I'll tell you what they're at, and they're all the way down towards the end, like the 5th to the end and the 3rd to the end. One states that whoever you're giving power of attorney to has the full right to change your beneficiaries. You might not want to initial that one. Okay? The other one that you might not want to initial, which is kind of difficult, is that you're giving your power of attorney the opportunity to create a trust for you. Well, they create a trust for you, they get to create the beneficiaries. So again, they could change them, right? The sad thing is if you have, let's say, dementia, and you legally cannot sign a trust, but we're trying to transfer assets to the trust to qualify for like Florida Medicaid, not Medicare, but Medicaid, we can't transfer it to the trust because you are not able to sign off as being the grantor and giving the legal right to move the money over there. So your power of attorney, if that was initial, could create that trust, be the grantor, and transfer your assets over, and we could continue on with Medicare plan. So that's the only one that's like a glitchy glitch, but there are other ways to get Medicaid. So I would probably just not initial that. Otherwise, you could pretty much go through. Now, if it's going to be a simple power of attorney, just allowing for basics. So in other words, it might be a case of, you know, you're incapacitated for a while, they got to pay your monthly bills or whatever, then you can go through and set up a limited power of attorney. That power of attorney you're going to want to keep very, very safe. You're not going to want to have it to where somebody in the rehab center can get a hold of it. Because if they get a hold of it and they have your ID and they can make it, you know, they can do a lot of damage. So you got to be really careful with that document. The second one is the medical durable, to make medical decisions for you. That one, who cares where you keep it, okay? So it used to be, we said keep it in every one of your glove boxes, or have your kids keep it in their glove boxes of their car, what have you. But now you can just keep it in the cloud, because only the people that are listed on there can make medical decisions for you. So it doesn't really matter who gets a hold of it, right? But it is very important, because chances are something's going to happen to you like on a Friday night. So you don't want to have that thing stuck in your safe deposit box at the bank on a Friday night, you get into an accident, and now your kids need to make medical decisions for you. Because they're not going to be able to make those medical decisions until Monday when they get to the bank and get the safe deposit box. So have them uploaded into a link on the cloud that they can access it. That way they can be on a cruise, they can be out of the country, they can send it to the hospital, they'll be able to talk and act on your behalf. It is getting to be really, really permanent in Florida that doctors will not treat you without seeing that medical durable, if you're out of it, okay? So super, super important to have that document. And then if you have that document, then whoever has it is going to make decisions for you. Have the conversation of what you'd like to have done, okay? It's kind of a really big deal, so they know, should they unplug, should they not unplug, what should they go through and do. So I just went through a bunch of turmoil with my brother-in-law. He was struck by a car, and he had been deranged, separated from the whole family, kind of pushed everybody away. Not a very nice guy. So his children hadn't talked to him in about 5 years. His sister, my wife, had not talked to him in over 10 years. All of his children had different last names than his. My wife was the only one that linked together with him in the state of Florida because she was his only kid. And so the state came and gave her everything, power of attorney, durable, medical. They granted her all because he was in a coma completely, he was completely brain dead. So her decision was to pull the plug about 5 days after the accident, which the doctors, everybody supported that that's probably what she did. But his two boys came through and said, no, he's a fighter, he'll make it. We want to make sure that he stays. So they kept him around for 5 months. During that 5 months, my wife and I had to go through and get him onto SSDI, get him qualified for Medicaid so that the hospitals could get paid for all the stuff that they were doing for this guy. And it was kind of interesting because he had actually collected some food stamps from Social Security system, but he didn't cash them. We had to locate those food stamps, get them back, refund them back to get his SSDI turned on, to then be able to qualify for Medicaid. Took us 4.5 months. 5 months later, the sons finally decided to pull the plug. He lasted like 3 more days, passed. But when he went in the hospital, he was 188. When they finally decided to pull the plugs, he was 58 pounds. I didn't even know you could weigh that little. It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. So make sure everybody knows, what's going on. If you're going to have somebody as your medical provider, do you want to go to assisted living? Do you want to go to independent? Do you want to go to a nursing home? What do you want? And make sure the kids know. Okay? The living will's going to give a lot of that direction too, whether there's a do not resuscitate, what have you. Financial durable power we just talked about. Last one, testament, we're going to talk about the probate. All right. So there are many, on this one here, estate tax. Okay? Federal estate tax upon your entire net worth. If you have life insurance, the face amount counts as part of your net worth. If you have all the properties, all of that counts. Your all your assets, what have you. It's all your net worth. For Florida, as of right now, or for the federal rate, it's $25.84 million for the couples. Okay? A lot of people do not reach that range. However, there's a lot of talk of that being changed in 2026. So I went back to my legislation friends and I said, hey, what do you think it's going to get changed to? And they said, well, we know it's going to go to 3 million. Well, we don't know if it's going to go to 3 million per person or 3 million per couple. But in either situation, life insurance agents are going to love that. Because if it goes to 3 billion, you guys probably are over a $3 million estate. And so anything that would go over this 25.84 is taxed at 40%. Every dollar over that, so every dollar over 3 million would be taxed at 40% to your kids. So what do? You buy life insurance to cover anything over that 3 million, if that's what they change it to. So if you have an estate of 5 million, you take out a life insurance policy to cover the taxes on that 2 million. The life insurance premiums would be a lot cheaper than the 40% to your kids. So life insurance, ads on TV, it's going to be horrendous. You're going to have so many freaking calls from life insurance agents. It's insane. Right now you don't, because it's 25.84 million. They lower it to 3 or 6, you're going to get bombarded with phone calls. Okay? But I like to point that out. I also like to point out that these particular states have their own. That a lot of them start from $1. Okay? So if your parents happen to live in New Hampshire or Maine or Rhode Island or New York and they pass away, there is going to be an estate tax that has to be settled in that state. Okay? So just be aware of that, understand it, know it. Got a client right now whose brother lives in New York, uncle lives in New York, left the beneficiaries to his niece and his nephew. The niece is the one who lives down here, who we know. So working with that, because when he passes, there's going to be a bunch of estate that has to go to New York, and then the nephew who lives in New York is also going to have to pay inheritance. So almost 50% of the money is going to be gone between the New York taxes and the state settlement. So what I'm working right now is to try and see if the older gentleman will transfer his residency to Florida, which is just changing his voter registration card down here. He has to be here for a certain period of time, which she's more willing to let him live down here, and we can at least save that big portion of tax out to that nephew. Okay, so just be aware those states have those different amounts. There are a lot of different types of trusts, a lot of them. Okay, we're going to talk about only a couple of them. This one being the revocable or irrevocable trust. You guys would all do a revocable trust. A revocable trust is something that you can go through and make changes to. You can change the beneficiaries, you can change the trustees, you can do anything you want to do. Now, if you do nothing else, at least put in writing where you would like your assets and your items to go to, right? Don't be like Prince. If it's a question, should I do a will? Should I do a trust? I would highly recommend that you do a trust. A trust is incontestable. So if you have any issue with any kids, their spouses, grandkids, whatever, the trust is going to follow and it's going to be non-contestable. A will is contestable. The second there's a contestability, it will go to probate. Once it goes to probate, they hire all of the tax attorneys, private investigators, legal, what have you, to try and figure out if whatever is going to probate holds water, and they will pay all those people's wages out of your estate, and then whatever's left goes to the beneficiaries. Okay? So trying to avoid probate is the best route. Having a trust would go through and do that. Now, what I would recommend doing, because a lot of attorneys don't do this, but inside of the trust, request for them to put a declaration page. Some of you want a declaration page. On the declaration page, you could go through and put items that mean something to you and maybe your kids. Example for my mom, she went through and left a red ruby necklace and red ruby earrings to my sister-in-law. It was listed on the declaration page, it was notarized, okay? There was some artwork, some things of my dad that was supposed to go to me, and so all these different things. So things that don't have like identification numbers or where maybe artwork, stuff like that, you can put on this declaration page. Maybe it's an automobile that you want to leave to somebody, right? But the nice thing is, if something happens, you sell it, you decide you don't want it to go to them, you just change the declaration page, and it just needs to be notarized. You don't have to redo the entire trust. You don't have to go back to the attorney, so it's very inexpensive just to get somebody to notarize the update. So my mom was in that bad car accident where she lost the use of her right hand. She was wearing those earrings and that necklace, and when she hit, she was making a turn, and she got nailed, and the airbag went off and blew this shoulder. That's what ripped all the tendons. That's why she lost use of that shoulder, but it also hit her ear, and that earring flew. So I went back and changed that declaration page that my sister-in-law was now getting an earring and a necklace, and just had it notarized. Then, when they totaled my mom's car, I was able to go and pull all the belongings out of it, and I was able to actually find that earring all the way in the very back of in the crease of the window in the back. It flew all the way out back into there. So I pulled that out. I now had the earring. I went back and rechanged the declaration page. My sister-in-law gets 2 earrings and a necklace and just had it notarized. Okay? So that's the neat thing about the declaration page, but most attorneys won't put them in there because they want you to come back and talk to them about changing it. Okay? So, revocable trust, you're in control. However, I think it's going to talk here that it may not avoid creditors, right? And it may not avoid estate tax. It may be counted to, okay? So that's the only thing with a revocable trust is that people think they can put it in there and they're going to avoid those things. The irrevocable trust is a little different. That's like creating a family business. It's like the easiest way to think of it. And so it has its own tax ID number. It's its own entity. And what happens is the creator is the grantor, and they are moving their own money from themselves to the family business. And then they pick a manager to run the family business. They pick a trustee. And when they pick that trustee, which it could be you could be the trustee of your own along with a successor trustee or a co-trustee. But if you ever get diagnosed with not having enough memory to handle it or ability to handle it, or you decide to resign, you can never be put back on. Once you're off, you're off, okay? Most people in this situation, though, will put their children not themselves, because they're now looking to qualify for Medicaid and other things going forward. So maybe the parents have dementia, what have you. But parents of the grantor, that money's there. Once you create the trustees and the successor trustees, you cannot change them. So I always tell people, pick as many as you can. So maybe they'll pick their son and then their daughter. Well, who else? Because if your son doesn't want to do it and your daughter's no longer with us, then the state of Florida becomes it. So if it ever runs out of family members or who you have on there, state of Florida, state of Florida. So pick however many people you can that you trust to handle your assets while you're here. Once you create the
Mine's here?
well, yes, if you would please. Yeah, thank you.
Can I take the pen?
Absolutely. And then bring your book back next week. You can come Tuesday night or Thursday night, whichever is easiest for you. It's the same class next week.
Okay.
Bring your book because we'll give you the section 2 for it.
Awesome.
Just let the class or the office know if you would come Thursday instead of Tuesday.
Okay.
You can't change the beneficiaries. Once you've set up the beneficiaries, they are written in stone. You can't change them. Okay? So this is the one that everybody says, well, once you do it, it's written in stone, which is very, very true. So you guys wouldn't ever choose to do anything like this for yourself, but you might choose to do this for your parents if you're trying to qualify them for Medicaid, okay? Or some type of government assistance in being sick. The thing about the irrevocable trust is it's going to basically lose control of the assets from you because you're having somebody else in control of it. So you're going to probably lose control. And the taxes on it can be very complicated. The taxes are very, very high. So when we create these documents, we always make sure that there's a way that the trust never earns anything. All those earnings always pass through to somebody else. We do it in what would be a K1, which is like a 1099, and that way it goes into that person's bracket. Because these trusts, at about $600, will jump up to about 40% tax. They're not tax friendly. Okay? But again, you basically create an irrevocable when you're having family issues. Questions on revocable trusts? All right, so choosing the right fiduciaries. That's a really big deal. If you go through and do a professional fiduciary, you know, they need to know what the objective is. They should be independent and they may have financial expertise. However, you need to be really, really sure that you create it appropriately. So we have a gentleman who created a trust that when he passed, went to his wife to take care of his wife as long as she was with us. When she passed, the money was to be paid out to his boys, his 2 boys. One is a very, very successful physician with the traveling golfers. I don't know if they're PGA or whatever, but he's on a, I guess, PGA tournament. Super, super great guy. His brother owns a really successful company out of Mexico. Both of them are pretty wealthy guys. Dad and mom passed away 14 years ago, and they have yet to get a penny out of the trust. Because dad never put in there when it should start paying out or what percentage it should pay out. He just didn't put it in there for the contingent beneficiaries, for the kids. So there's this guy down in Coral Springs who's managing it. That was a professional manager. He's managing it. He was charging 4.8% management fees a year. The account's $3.8 million. Charging him 4.8 to manage it with absolutely no thought of ever giving any of it to the boys. So the only thing I was able to do was take him to court and get it to where he was excessively charging, and the state forced him to do a basic fee. So now he's at 1.25. But there was absolutely nothing we could do to get him to start paying that money out to the kids. So he just profits off of it every single month. Sucks.
Perpetuity, it's gonna be that way.
Sucks. Yep. Continuing on. Yeah, it sucks. And there's no beneficiaries past the boys either. So when they pass away, he can continue to keep managing it for the state. It's kind of crazy. So just be careful if you use a professional. Make sure that you have really, really clear as to how it goes. Or you could use a family member. You know, they definitely know all the parties. They can understand like what you want to have done. But make sure you have it in writing what you want to have done. Just like those 3 girls I was talking about. You know, mom should be changing her revocable trust to saying, hey, the beneficiaries now are going to be boom, 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 and the house needs to be sold like maybe 3 months after my passing or 6 months after my passing, with my daughter here having the first opportunity to buy the daughter in Africa out. Something like that. Just draw it out exactly how it should be. So the daughter understands, but she doesn't think her mom's going to do it because her mom has to be fair. Well, but the sisters aren't being fair. Maybe not because of their own, they can't because they're not here, but it's still not fair. So anyways, families are fun, right? Families, of course, would be a lower administrative cost and more flexibility and control of the family members as they go through and do things, or at least you hope you do, right? There's 2 different ways to set up the beneficiaries, and pretty much in Florida, all attorneys will pick per stirpes. So I just want you to know what per stirpes and per capita are, and you can take a look and see how your stuff is set up right now. But let's say that there's 3 beneficiaries on whatever document it is, and it is per capita. So what that means is that if one of those beneficiaries passes away before the individual that's going to be, the item is going to be paying out, if one of them passes away, then all of the remaining is split up between the 2 remaining beneficiaries. So those 3 girls are all equal. If one of them happened to pass away, South Africa passes away, then her portion will be split between the 2 sisters. That is the first one, per capita. Yep. Okay? But all the attorneys always choose to go per stirpes. Per stirpes is, off of those 3 girls, South Africa passes away prematurely, then the trust goes to pay out, it will still pay to her estate. They'll pay her 33% to her estate, which would be to her family. Okay? Crazy thing about that is estates in Florida run about $5,800 to create an estate. And you can't create an estate until the person is gone, is passed. So in this situation then, if mom passes away, she's already gone. Now whoever's going to receive her 33% is going to have to pay $5,800 to create an estate for her, which she's in South Africa. That's going to be even crazier to go through and do. But her estate's got to be created for this money then to be released into. And by creating that estate, the judge has to see very clear who she really wanted that money to go to. She probably never said anything. She's been dead. I don't know. But they all seem to, I guess it's just because it's like, oh, we'll just keep everything fair. So just be safe and cautious of it. Obviously, if you have 3 kids and they all have your grandkids and then you want to be, good. But just understand that that family is going to have to create that estate for that person who's passed. They're going to have to lay out all that money to be able to get that portion of money. And in order to create that estate, now, obviously, if it's their spouse and they have your grandkids, it's going to be pretty easy for the judge to say, oh, well, it's going to the spouse. That's, in care of blah, blah. If the kids are of age, they might decide, okay, we're going to do this much to the kid. So that's pretty easy. But if she has no family, and she found, yeah, so what happened is these other 2 girls will have to create an estate, pay the $5,800 plus whatever for South Africa to go through and create that, deal with the South African judge to go through and get that money released back to them because she has no family. Okay? Instead, change it per capita and solve. All right, so consider the advantages and disadvantages of having a will versus a trust. Okay? Don't ignore the financial needs that you may have during your lifetime. So it gets me when people come in and they'll say, I want to spend all the money before I die. It's impossible, really, because you have no idea what your final expenses are going to be. Are you going to be in assisted living and have it in your house, whatever? So you realistically need to figure out how much money you're going to spend later on to try and have that part set aside for you, unless you plan on becoming a burden to your kids, and then that's a different call. Consider the tax implications between the different types of strategies, right? Throw a real sharp angle into there. You could leave your IRA, the beneficiary, as your revocable trust. You create a revocable trust, and the beneficiary of your IRA is the trust, not your kids. Now the trust beneficiary is the kids. But now what just happened is you just threw a wrench to the IRS. Because now when this moves from the IRA of yours to the belonging of the trust trust isn't a living entity. It says this has to be lived there within 10 years to a living entity. It isn't more than 10 years by moving it to a trust. Now they can leave it there as long as they want. They pay the tax on it, of course, when they take it out, but they can leave it there as long as they want. Leave it for your grandkids. There's always a way. Review your existing estate planning documents. Review the assets, ownership, and determine the joint beneficiaries, TOD status, so make sure that you have all that stuff on there and it's exactly the way you want it. Review the current beneficiary designations on retirement accounts. If life insurance, annuity contracts, per stirpes, or per capita, how do they have it listed? How do you want to have it listed to your kids? Consider the advantages of a will-based plan versus a trust-based plan with revocable or irrevocable portability. Now, if you have a revocable trust, so you guys have created a revocable trust with your daughter as the contingent trustee, and you're incapacitated to make decisions, it will automatically become irrevocable the second she takes over. She can't change the beneficiaries. She can't play games and take money out of it. She can't do anything. She just becomes an employee. Okay? Because some people will ask about, well, so remember I said you really would only have an irrevocable trust if you can't make the decisions or you're trying to qualify for some type of government assistance. So you would all have revocable trusts. But if you ever landed in that situation, you don't have to create an irrevocable. Your revocable will automatically turn irrevocable as soon as your contingent trustees take over. Okay? Recognize the importance of creating your own tailored estate plan for proper legacy planning. So controlling from the grave is what sometimes they'll call it. I had a really cool couple years and years ago that came over here from Cuba with very, very little money. And she was an incredible sales lady, and he was a scientist. And so they happened to create a vitamin store that you guys would all know. And he created 14 different vitamins through his life that they actually sold in that store exclusively, along with all the other vitamins and stuff. And the chain still exists today. So they had a very, very big estate. So what I had them go through and do, because it was over the years that they grew this monster estate. So like I said, they came here, I think, with like $200 in their pocket. And when she passed away, after he passed away 7 years before her, when she passed away, the estate at that time was worth $148 million. Actually, the estate was worth more than that. Just the trust was worth $148 million. Okay? So what I had them do when he was still with us is I asked them to go have a oil painting done, the two of them. So they did, and we took professional photos of that. We put it onto a bifold thing, and I had them write the entire story of who they were, how they grew up, where they lived, why they came here, and what America meant to them. So we set up that every one of the children, every time they would receive any money from this trust, and yet still to this day, whenever they receive a payment from that trust, they get that bifold. Every time. They've been gone for, 20-some years now. Every time these kids get that bifold with their payments. Now, what was interesting was they had 3 kids. So one was a doctor, one was an attorney, and one was a heroin addict. The heroin addict was a female, and she had 5 kids. So what we did is we created inside the trust that the only way she would get any money from the trust is if she would return to us, the investment advisor, if she turned to us a W-2 or 1099. So whatever income she earned, we would match it because she had never had a job. Okay? So as long as she was working, we did it. Or if she wanted any type of rehabilitation, we would pay the rehabilitation center direct. Never give her any money whatsoever. She never asked for any rehabilitation. She never ever worked. 5 years later, she passed away. Money was left to the grandkids and to some to her husband. But as they had grandkids and all, there's all kinds of rules and sections in there that, like, when they're born, they get this much money. When they go through and graduate from high school, they get this much money. When they turn around and go to college, they get this much money. They want to buy their first car. Just everything is directly listed in that trust of exactly how it goes. Controlling from the grave. So recognize the importance of creating your own tailored estate that could go on for generations if you have enough money. That particular estate will never run out of money. Okay? So it's kind of cool that generations after generations after generations are going to know where that money came from. Recognize the plan that you create today will determine the legacy that you leave tomorrow. So it's super important, right? That brings us to the last 5 questions. If you would answer those, give Michaela your sheets, and we will see you guys on next Tuesday night.
Question. So, what do you think is the proper age to create a trust?
Anytime you have assets. So the thing is though, you guys may have a house, which automatically transfers to the next of kin, okay? So the house is not a terrible thing to go through, and I probably would put the house into a ladybird deed, not into a trust. Sometimes you pick up a ladybird deed created by Lady Bird Johnson in 1970. It actually gets recorded with the county clerk as an actual deed. So what happens is when you pass away, the house immediately goes to whoever you have registered, as in maybe your kids. Because what's really sick is that let's say you pass away together, there's a lot of people that read the obituaries that will read the tax rolls and see, and they may be a roofer or a plumber or an electrician, and they'll put mechanics against your house. And now the kids have to prove that that was never work that was ever done, or they have to pay it before they can ever sell the property. So Lady Bird deed instantly goes through, and no creditors can apply anything to the property once the death occurs.
You're saying in addition to the trust, Lady Bird deed?
Lady Bird deed for the house. I would do a Lady Bird deed instead of trust. Yep. And then if you have your 401k, you have your bank accounts, you have all these different investments, as long as you have all the beneficiaries set up appropriately, you don't even need to have a trust. Because those are all incontestable. It's all going to transfer to exactly who you want to go to. Right? So the only thing that might be left is like, what do you want to have happen with like her jewelry, or with your car, or things of that are pretty simple based. If you want to do a trust or need to do legal work through the class, we have some attorneys that offer things at discounted rates. So to go through and actually do like a power of attorney, the durable, the trust, all that kind of stuff, in Florida you're looking at about $3,500. I believe that they do all of it for like under $1,000.
From your office.
Not from our office, from Prepare.
From Prepare.
Contacts that you.
Through Prepare. Yeah. So you have to tell them that you did a Prepare class, and then they give you those discounts. Okay? What do you think?
Very. Gotta get our ducks in a row, because this cluster with my parents stuff is a mess.
Very interesting to me that an individual that actually owns an investment firm and an insurance license would come to the class. Very nice guy.
I found that interesting.
Very nice guy, but I was just like, wow, that's very